हेलो फ्रेंड्स, वेलकम बैक टू माय चैनल। तो आज मैं एक नया स्टोरी स्टार्ट करने वाला हूँ, तो चलिए स्टार्ट करते हैं।
Chapter 1 Kamui Cannot Hide Tears. White Tiger Duke's Mansion, Backyard. This was a woodshed where even the servants were unwilling to stay for long. Huo Yuhao knelt before the hard wooden bed, his hands tightly clutching his mother's hand. Mom. His voice was extremely hoarse. Is this what they call fate? How ridiculous. In his past life, while trying to pull Ten-Tails Obito in the mobile game, he hit the hard pity, getting so angry that he smashed his phone. When he opened his eyes again, he had become the Huo Yuhao from Peerless Tang sect. This kneeling was for everything he had suffered in this world over the past 11 years. Memories surged through his mind like a revolving lantern. Mother, the only person in this world who loved him, was gone. In this glorious and prominent White Tiger Duke's mansion, the mother and son lived like rats in a gutter. Having their rations embezzled was a daily occurrence, those sour meals and moldy buns were humiliations they had to swallow just to survive. The Huo Yuhao in the original story would become a god in the future, radiating brilliance. But so what? The God King's son-in-law. Nothing more than a lapdog of the Tang clan. Seemingly possessing infinite glory, in reality, every step was calculated by others to the death. Toyed within the Chenkin questioning heart valley, and in the end, he still had to be a good dog, full of gratitude. What was the difference between that kind of life and Uchiha Obito, who was played in the palm of Madara's hand? Huo Yuhao lowered his head, his forehead resting against his mother's cold back of her hand, as tears silently soaked into the bedsheets. Bang! The dilapidated wooden door was kicked open. A slightly chubby middle-aged man stood at the door, waving away the dust in front of him with disgust. Finished crying. The man didn't step inside, as if the air in this woodshed would soil his clothes. He leaned against the doorframe, his tone filled with impatient bitterness. If you're done crying, move the corpse out. Don't let the bad luck pollute the woodshed, the Duke's mansion still needs to stack firewood here. Huo Yuhao snapped his head up. In that instant, the sorrow in his eyes was scattered by a sudden surge of hostility. Corpse. His mother had a name, she was called Mother. In your eyes, a human life isn't even worth as much as a pile of dry wood. The middle-aged man was Steward Joe, who had frequently embezzled the rations of the mother and son. At this moment, his greasy face was filled with indifference. What are you looking at? Stare again and I'll gouge your eyes out. Steward Joe felt a bit uneasy being stared at by Huo Yuhao's deep blue eyes. In his embarrassment and anger, he stepped over the threshold, his leather boots creaking on the wooden boards. I'll give you one last minute. Clean up and get out, don't force me to get physical. After speaking, he glanced contemptuously at the body on the bed and added. Crying counts as time too. Huo Yuhao's nails dug deep into the flesh of his palms. Rage exploded in his chest, burning his internal organs. Kill him, I want to kill him. He tried to stand up, but his body trembled from extreme grief and indignation, his legs heavy as if filled with lead. Facing this level 32 spirit elder, he, at level 10, was as weak as an ant. It was that feeling again, that suffocating sense of helplessness. Watching his mother die of illness because he had no money for medicine, watching the bullies act with arrogance while he was unable to resist. Without power, even anger seemed so ridiculous. If I had power, even if I had to sell my soul to a demon. Just then, the world seemed to stand still for a moment. A crisp electronic sound, like heavenly music, exploded deep in his mind. Ding. Ten-Tails Jinchuriki System Awakening. Detected that the host meets the awakening conditions. Witnessing the death of a beloved one, experiencing extreme powerlessness and despair. Enraged child template is loading. Huo Yuhao suddenly covered his right eye. Sharp pain. His originally azure spirit eyes instantly lost their color, replaced by a deep crimson. Is this the Sharingan? Deep within those blood-colored pupils, a black tomo emerged, followed immediately by a second, and then a third. They spun frantically, finally colliding and weaving together to form three pitch-black sickle-like patterns, connected end to end. Mangekyo Sharingan, Kamui. At the same time, a surge of white fluid-like substance appeared out of thin air. It instantly enveloped Huo Yuhao's thin body. Steward Joe was about to step forward to forcibly drag him away when he suddenly saw this scene, and his entire body froze in place. What the hell is this? A mutated spirit? No, isn't this loser's spirit his eyes? The contempt in his eyes turned into terror. The frail boy in front of him was gone. In his place was a monster entirely wrapped in a white, spiral-shaped substance. Only that right eye was exposed, the blood-red triple sickle pattern slowly rotating, emitting a heart-palpitating chill. He tilted his head, and from beneath the white mask came a roar that didn't sound human, carrying a long suppressed release that echoed through the narrow woodshed. Die. Huo Yuhao's right hand, tightly wrapped in the white substance, slowly rose. In his palm, there was no brilliant spirit power light. Only a seemingly ordinary tree branch, which was growing wildly. Swoosh. That branch was like an arrow leaving a bow, whistling through the air as it pointed directly at Steward Joe's throat. Wood release. Cutting technique. Steward Joe's pupils shrank slightly, instinctively sensing a hint of danger. But when he saw it was just a piece of wood, that moment of panic was quickly masked by the arrogance of a spirit elder. Just a level 10 loser. Even with a mutated spirit, what kind of waves could he possibly make? Overestimating yourself. Steward Joe shouted, and two spirit rings quickly rose beneath his feet. One white, two yellow. Iron-clawed tiger, possession. Accompanied by a low tiger roar, his hands rapidly expanded. Sharp steel claws grew from his fingertips, shimmering with a metallic cold light. He didn't dodge, but instead swung those tiger claws, capable of tearing rock, to meet the incoming branch. These tiger claws possess the power to crush boulders. However, in the next second, reality shattered his perception. Poochie. There was no crisp sound of metal clashing, only the dull thud of a blade cutting into tofu. That branch, which wasn't even thick, actually ignored the defense of a spirit elder level. It directly pierced through those steel-like tiger claws and, without losing momentum, slammed into Steward Joe's right shoulder. What? How is this possible? As the pain hit, Steward Joe's eyes widened in disbelief. This wood was harder than refined iron. The single eye beneath Huo Yuhao's mask showed no emotion as his right hand suddenly clenched in the air. Feel the pain. Burst. Before Steward Joe could even scream, the branch that had pierced his body seemed to come alive. Crack, crack. Countless sharp twigs instantly grew and branched out wildly inside his body. Blood vessels were burst, muscles were torn, and internal organs were ruthlessly impaled. Ah. The shrill wail lasted only half a second before abruptly stopping. Steward Joe's body expanded and twisted at a speed visible to the naked eye. Ultimately, countless branches pierced through his skin, bloating his entire being into a bizarre humanoid tree. Chapter 2. The enraged child awakens, annihilating the Duke's mansion, Uchiha's mad laughter. Huo Yuhao clenched his fists, feeling the majestic power surging within his body. This wasn't just spirit power, it was also chakra. This power was enough to crush an ordinary spirit emperor and even rival a spirit saint. But my body is too weak. He could clearly feel that this power did not originate from himself, but from the symbiont named White Zetsu possessing his body. 15 minutes at most. If it lasted any longer, his body would collapse first. Huo Yuhao turned his head, his blood-red Sharingan scanning the area outside the house. I must end this quickly. Not just this manager, but everyone who bullied my mother, everyone in this Duke's mansion who looked at us like livestock, they all must die. The commotion here had already alerted the nearby patrol. What's going on over there? 2 guards wearing light armor rushed into the courtyard. When they saw the blood tree at the entrance of the woodshed, their faces instantly turned pale. Is that old Joe? Who are you? How dare you commit murder in the White Tiger Duke's mansion? One of the guards drew his long sword and shouted with a fierce look that masked his inner fear. The other guard was clearly more experienced. He glanced inside the woodshed, a trace of ruthlessness flashing in his eyes. Who cares what he is? He might be an evil soul master who sneaked in. Let's take him down together, then throw that woman's corpse out of the woodshed. Hey, this is the Duchess's order. Old Joe didn't finish it, but if we do, the Duchess's reward will surely be substantial. Corpse. Throw it out. Reward. These words were like red-hot irons, searing into Huo Yuhao's tense nerves. That was his bottom line. You all, go to hell. Boom. The floor of the woodshed instantly exploded. Huo Yuhao's figure disappeared. It was extreme speed brought by an explosion of pure physical strength. The air was instantly torn apart, leaving a ring of white air waves in his wake. Wah. The 2 guards didn't even have time to blink, they only saw a blur before their eyes. Bang, bang. 2 muffled sounds rang out almost simultaneously. The chests of both men instantly collapsed, and their bodies flew backward like kites with broken strings. They smashed through the courtyard wall and the corridor pillars one after another, finally slumping into the pile of rubble like 2 piles of mud, completely devoid of life. Huo Yuhao was like a white ghost, weaving through the backyard of the White Tiger Duke's mansion. He didn't need spirit abilities or tactics. He only needed to see the faces that had once mocked him and his mother. Kill. It was you who intentionally swapped our coal for wet coal last winter. Poochie. A wooden spike pierced the throat. And you, who stole mother's only hairpin to trade for wine. Crack. The neck was twisted and broken directly. The smell of blood filled the air, and panic spread through the Duke's mansion. Finally, the truly powerful were alerted. Audacious madman. Prepare to intercept immediately, the Duke's mansion must be defended. Dozens of figures swept in from all directions. The light of spirit rings illuminated the night sky. Spirit elders, spirit ancestors, spirit kings, and even the leader was a 6-ring spirit emperor. It was the captain of the guards of the Duke's mansion. At this moment, looking at the corpses littering the ground, his eyes were nearly splitting with rage. Invader, surrender now. The captain of the guards roared, the long spear in his hand instantly igniting with raging flames, and the 6th spirit ring behind him suddenly flared. 6th spirit ability, Blazing Strike. That flaming spear, carrying an aura that could destroy everything, locked onto the space between Huo Yuhao's brows. This strike was unavoidable. Can't dodge. Huo Yuhao stood in place, watching the roaring fire dragon approach. But he didn't dodge. Or rather, at that moment, the scythe pattern in his right eye spun wildly, and an instinct drove him to make no defensive movements at all. Whoosh. The flaming spear, which was enough to instantly kill a spirit king, actually passed through Huo Yuhao's body without any resistance at the moment of contact. It was as if it had passed through a phantom. The flames struck the ground behind Huo Yuhao, exploding into a massive, charred crater. And Huo Yuhao stood in place unharmed, with not even a speck of dust blown onto the hem of his clothes. Wah, what? The captain of the guard's eyes widened, looking as if he had seen a ghost. It didn't hit. Impossible. What spirit ability is this? Physical immunity, or a spatial ability? Not just him, all the spirit masters present were stunned. Huo Yuhao slowly raised his head, the pattern in that crimson right eye spinning incessantly. This was Kamui. Although he couldn't yet control it skillfully, in a moment of life or death crisis, this eye had responded to his wish. You all, go die. Huo Yuhao formed hand seals, and the wood release power within his body was completely detonated. Wood release. Cutting technique. Rumble. The earth began to tremble, as if some terrifying giant beast were about to burst from the ground. In the next second, countless thick, twisted tree trunks broke through the soil beneath everyone's feet. They didn't look like plants, but rather like countless giant pythons with sharp barbs, wildly sweeping across the surroundings. Ah, my leg. What kind of monster is this? Help. The Duke won't let you get away with this. Screams rose one after another, but were quickly drowned out by the sound of growing trees. Once those branches touched a human body, they immediately pierced in, frantically absorbing the spirit power and flesh essence of the spirit masters. Then they grew even more lushly, sprouting even sharper thorns. In the blink of an eye, the originally magnificent courtyard had turned into a silent forest of death. Dozens of the Duke's mansion's elites had all become nourishment for this forest. The leaves rustled, like the wailing of the dead. Huo Yuhao did not stop. Because that most nauseating aura, the source of all the tragedy, had appeared. At the main gate, a group of noble people had just returned. The Duchess, dressed in lavish clothing, had just stepped out of the carriage when she was shocked senseless by the scene before her. A thick smell of blood, bizarrely twisted trees everywhere, and mangled corpses hanging from the branches. Where is this? Where is my mansion? The Duchess took a step back in terror. Guards, protect me. But no one responded to her. This is hell, madam. A cold voice rang in her ear. Huo Yuhao's figure emerged from a tree trunk like a ghost, standing before the Duchess. You're the one behind this. The Duchess was a strong person after all, and she reacted quickly after her initial terror. With a shrill cry, her hell Sibit spirit possessed her, and her entire being turned into a black shadow, her claws aiming straight for Huo Yuhao's throat. Die. Swish. The claws once again passed through Huo Yuhao's body, as if grabbing at thin air. Kamui. Too slow. Huo Yuhao's voice was cold and devoid of any warmth. The moment he materialized, a fist wrapped in white substance struck out heavily. Bang. This punch landed solidly on the Duchess's abdomen. The Duchess's mouth flew open, and blood sprayed out. She felt as if her internal organs had all shifted out of place, and she fell to her knees uncontrollably. Looking at the white demon approaching step by step, she finally felt fear. Your Excellency, when has our Duke's mansion ever offended you? The Duchess endured the intense pain, trying to bring up her backing. I am the wife of the White Tiger Duke, Dai Hao. For the sake of Marshal Dai Hao. Dai Hao. Huo Yuhao stopped in his tracks, his right hand slowly rising to press against the spiral mask on his face. The mask swirled and deactivated, revealing a face that, though youthful, was filled with hatred. Dai Hao must also die. The Duchess's pupils contracted violently, as if she had seen the most unbelievable thing in the world. It's you. Dai Yuhao, that bastard son of that bitch. Slap. Huo Yuhao didn't speak, he just brought his palm down like a blade. Blood splattered. The Duchess's arms were severed from the shoulders. Ah, my hands. The pampered Duchess let out a pig-like scream as she rolled on the ground in agony. Insult my mother one more time, and I will make you wish you were dead. Huo Yuhao's voice was terrifyingly calm. The Duchess's whole body convulsed with pain, but her venomous gaze remained fixed on Huo Yuhao. She knew she wouldn't survive, and despair made her even more insane. I'm telling you, bastard, since you dare to do this, Dai Hao, and even the entire Star Luo Empire will not let you go. You and your bitch mother will be ground into dust. Bang. Huo Yuhao punched her in the face, cutting off her speech. Since you love talking so much, you can go down and talk slowly later. Huo Yuhao grabbed her by the hair and dragged her like a dead dog all the way to the door of the woodshed. Right in front of mother's corpse. Kneel. He kicked the back of the Duchess's knees. Thud. This high and mighty lady finally knelt before the maidservant she had treated as trash in life. Cutting technique. Huo Yuhao pressed his hand against the Duchess's back. This time, he didn't detonate it immediately. Instead, he controlled the branches, letting them pierce into her meridians bit by bit, turning her into a cripple who could only feel pain. Kill me. The Duchess no longer even had the strength to scream, she could only let out weak groans. This is just the beginning. Huo Yuhao looked at his mother's peaceful face, and 2 lines of bloody tears slid down his cheeks. Explode. Boom. Countless sharp wooden spikes erupted from within the Duchess's body, tearing her completely apart. Her posture looked very much like she was eternally apologizing to mother. After doing all this, Huo Yuhao looked up. Immense sorrow and the pleasure of revenge intertwined in his mind, finally turning into a burst of frenzied laughter. Ha ha ha, ha 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 ha. He covered his face, laughing as tears mixed with blood dripped down. Chapter 3, Heading to the Stardew Great Forest, Yuhao's Mission to Save His Mother, Jinchuriki Template Series. The frenzied laughter came to an abrupt halt in the night wind. Huo Yuhao lowered his head abruptly, his lone eye beneath the white mask coldly scanning this, hell. Dealing with the Duchess is not the end. Dai Waban, the culprit who caused his mother's death. Dai Yuang, the eldest son who appeared gentle and elegant but was actually hypocritical to the extreme. And Dai Hao, that beast who fathered me but never raised me. All of you, just wait for me. Huo Yuhao did not linger there for long. The commotion here was too great, it might attract even more troublesome characters. His figure moved swiftly through the ruins. Relying on the insight of the Sharingan, he easily found a storage spirit tool and followed the clues to ransack the Duke's mansion's treasury. There were about 50 million gold coins. It's enough. This is the startup capital for my revenge. Finally, he found a crystal coffin carved from ice marrow. Huo Yuhao's movements became gentle. He returned to the woodshed, carefully picked up his mother's already cold body, and gently placed her into the coffin. Mom, I'm taking you with me. In his right eye, the triple sickle-shaped Mangekyo Sharingan spun frantically. Kamui. Space warped before him into a black vortex, connecting to an alternate dimension independent of this world, the Kamui dimension. The crystal coffin floated up slowly, was sucked into the center of the vortex, and vanished. After finishing this, Huo Yuhao picked out a 7th-level storage ring from the spoils and put it on his hand. It's not wise to stay here for long. He took one last look at the White Tiger Duke's mansion and, without any lingering regret, turned and left. Half an hour later, by a stream 100 miles away from the Duke's mansion. Huo Yuhao staggered to a halt, leaning against a large tree and gasping for breath. That sense of omnipotence was receding like the tide, replaced by a tearing ache in his muscles. Clatter. The white substance peeled off his body and retracted into his frame. The enraged kid form deactivated. He reverted to that thin 11-year-old boy, his face as pale as paper. So tired, I feel like my body has been hollowed out. Huo Yuhao checked himself and was surprised to find that, besides his original spirit Eye's spirit, another spirit seemed to be slumbering within his body. It was a statue, brimming with vitality and violence. What is this? The ghetto statue? Or the Ten-Tails? He tried to mobilize that power for a spirit possession. Buzz. His body trembled violently, but nothing happened, like a machine that couldn't start for lack of energy. Huo Yuhao shook his head and gave up the attempt. He stripped off his clothes and jumped into the cold stream water. The cold stream water washed over his skin and also allowed his feverish mind to cool down. Changing into clean cloth clothes, Huo Yuhao sat cross-legged on a blue stone by the stream. System. With a thought. A translucent, pale blue light screen that only he could see unfolded before his eyes. Ten-Tails Jinchuriki system. Current template unlocked. Uchiha Obito, enraged kid form. Rows of icons were arranged on the light screen. On the far left of the first row was the already lit up icon of the enraged kid. And a few spots to the right of that icon was one that had not yet been unlocked. It was a man wearing a white Magatama mask, his left eye was a purple Rinnegan, and his right eye was a scarlet Sharingan. Uchiha Madara, white mask. Huo Yuhao's breath suddenly hitched. Outer path, Samsara of heavenly life technique. Huo Yuhao clenched his fist tightly. Rinne Tensai. A technique that can resurrect the dead. 2 trails of clear tears slid down from the corners of his eyes once more, but this time, he was filled with hope. Mom, wait for me. Once I unlock this form, I'll be able to bring you back to life. Not just Obito. He shifted his gaze downward and saw several rows of grayed out icons below. Madara series templates. Otsutsuki series. Kegaya. As expected of the Ten-Tails Jinchuriki system. All these powers. I want them all. Huo Yuhao took a deep breath and closed the system panel. He stood up and looked toward the north. The Stardo Great Forest. Huo Yuhao's starting point in the original story, and my starting point as well. Heavenly Dream Ice Worm, Electrolux, the outskirts of the Stardo Great Forest. Towering trees blotted out the sun. Huo Yuhao held the only relic his mother had left him, the white tiger dagger. He moved silently through the underbrush. Perhaps due to the butterfly effect of his transmigration, or maybe a slight deviation in the timeline, he didn't encounter Tangya and Bebe along the way. Just as he was wondering where to find the Heavenly Dream Ice Worm. Suddenly, a black shadow pounced down from the treetops to his side. HMPH. He snorted coldly, a glint of red light flashing in his eyes. His right eye changed instantly. 3 black Magatamas spun slowly. 3 Tomo Sharingan, activate. The black shadow, which had been as fast as lightning, instantly slowed down in Huo Yuhao's vision. It was a baboon, with brownish yellow fur and crimson eyes. Was this the 10-year wind baboon that had nearly killed the original Huo Yuhao? Too slow. I can see every movement trajectory and muscle contraction clearly. Clang. Huo Yuhao didn't even look back, raising the white tiger dagger behind him to block. Claws collided with the dagger, sending off a shower of sparks. The wind baboon clearly hadn't expected its sneak attack to fail. It roared in anger, pounded its chest with its fists, and pounced again, using the recoil. Bang, bang. With a slight shift in his footwork, Huo Yuhao simply turned his body and raised his hand, easily parrying the wind baboon's 2 consecutive strikes. His movements were as smooth as flowing water, without a single wasted motion. This is dynamic vision. Unable to land a hit after several attacks, the wind baboon was completely enraged. It stood upright, opened its bloody maw, and a white light began to glow deep in its throat. Is it going to spit a wind bullet? The corners of Huo Yuhao's mouth curled up slightly into a disdainful sneer. Perfect, I'll test this out on you. He put away the white tiger dagger and, instead of summoning his spirit, began to form hand seals extremely rapidly. Snake, goat, monkey, boar, horse, tiger. His fingers formed the seals so fast they were a mere blur of afterimages. At the same time, the energy within him that was different from spirit power, chakra, began to gather frantically. His current amount of chakra was roughly equivalent to the Chunin level. More than enough to deal with a 10-year-old beast like you. Huo Yuhao took a deep breath, his chest swelling high. Fire release, great fireball technique. Boom. A massive orange-red fireball over 2 meters in diameter violently erupted from his mouth. The rolling heat waves instantly evaporated the surrounding moisture. The pitiful white light the wind baboon had just spat out was like a firefly before a bright moon in the face of the massive fireball, instantly swallowed whole. Screech. The wind baboon let out a shrill scream. It didn't even have time to flee before being hit head-on by the flames. The flames dissipated. Only a charred corpse remained on the ground, still emitting wisps of blue smoke. A white halo slowly emerged from above the corpse. A 10-year spirit ring. Huo Yuhao steadied his breathing and gave a heartfelt sigh of admiration. Not bad power. Just as he was about to step forward to inspect it. Suddenly. Without any warning, a cheeky voice rang out directly in the depths of his mind. Oh my, I finally encountered a human with a mental attribute. It's a pity brother can't cry, otherwise, I'd definitely be streaming with tears. Huo Yuhao's body stiffened abruptly, and then the corners of his mouth curled into an expected arc. Here it is, the Heavenly Dream Ice Worm. Rumble. The ground beneath his feet suddenly shook violently. The soil 2 meters ahead instantly cracked open, revealing a massive fissure. A faint golden white light burst forth from the crack, and immediately after, a plump head poked out. It was a giant silkworm. Its entire body was a warm white jade color, translucent and sparkling, with a halo seemingly flowing beneath its skin. Although it had crawled out of the dirt, its body was spotless. The most striking feature was the back of its head. At regular intervals, there were golden ring patterns. 1, 2, exactly 10 golden rings. It was indeed the million-year spirit beast, the Heavenly Dream Ice Worm. Chapter 4, Heavenly Dream is Scared Witless, Second Spirit Ghetto Statue. In the sea of consciousness, that obnoxious voice rang out once more. First, let me introduce myself. I am the incarnation of heroism and chivalry, the king of kings among spirit beasts who values both wisdom and beauty equally. A peerless powerhouse who has cultivated for 1,000,000 years and holds the record for the longest lifespan on the Douluo Continent, the Heavenly Dream Ice Worm. The giant baby silkworm wiggled its plump body, its 2 small eyes flashing with golden light, seemingly waiting for the youth's worship. You can call me, Brother Heavenly Dream. Huo Yuhao looked at the self-absorbed fleshy worm before him with an expressionless face. 1,000,000 years. It was nothing more than sleeping for 1,000,000 years. Speak, worm, what do you want? Huo Yuhao's voice was as cold as ice. The Heavenly Dream Ice Worm's wiggling body suddenly froze. Worm. An expression of disbelief appeared on its face. Kid, you'll regret speaking to me like that. I'm going to become your spirit ring. The first ever intelligent spirit ring in the history of the Douluo Continent. At the same time, I'm giving you the chance to obtain a second spirit. This is a massive opportunity, do you understand? Huo Yuhao nodded slightly, his eyes still terrifyingly calm. An intelligent spirit ring, a second spirit. This sounds somewhat similar to the relationship between tailed beasts and Jinchuriki and Hokage. Except, tailed beasts are sealed, while you came knocking on my door yourself. Seeing Huo Yuhao nod, the heavenly dream ice worm thought he was finally moved by its terms. It breathed a sigh of relief, its giant head looking warily toward the depths of the Stardow Great Forest, the source of its nightmares. Those vicious beasts shouldn't have noticed I escaped yet, right? I need to hurry. It turned back to look at Huo Yuhao, its tone becoming a bit softer. I'm going to start now. Don't worry, I'll be gentle, it won't hurt too much. After all, your body is too weak. I have to seal the vast majority of my million-year cultivation for you to absorb it. Buzz. The 10 golden halos on the heavenly dream ice worm's body seemed to come alive, beginning to rhythmically pulsate. The golden light intensified. The 10 halos quickly flew out, enveloping Huo Yuhao's thin body. Meanwhile, the heavenly dream ice worm's massive true form transformed into a stream of white mental energy, frantically pouring into the space between Huo Yuhao's brows. Too weak, really too weak. As it fused, the heavenly dream ice worm muttered to itself within Huo Yuhao's mental world. Your meridians and physical fitness are so poor. If it weren't for your mental attribute, I wouldn't even spare you a glance. However, the moment its origin power entered Huo Yuhao's body, a sudden change occurred. The heavenly dream ice worm, which had been critiquing Huo Yuhao's body with abandon, suddenly changed its tune. Huh, what is this? It discovered to its horror that deep within Huo Yuhao's sea of consciousness, which should have been empty, stood a colossal entity. It was a massive, eerie statue the color of withered wood. It sat cross-legged in the dark abyss, possessing 9 tightly closed eyes and 10 pillar-like protrusions on its back. It emitted a heart-palpitating aura. In the moment the heavenly dream ice worm was dazed. Crack. That withered wood statue, the ghetto statue, suddenly opened its mouth. Purple chakra chains shot out from its mouth. What is this? You have twin spirits. No. Ah. The heavenly dream ice worm let out a shrill scream. The purple chains instantly bound its mental origin, it was not just a binding but a devouring. An incomparable, terrifying suction force erupted from the statue's mouth. No, 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 let me go. The heavenly dream ice worm struggled desperately, its massive mental force surging wildly in an attempt to shatter the chains. Damn it, this human isn't normal, what on earth is hidden inside his body? I just escaped the lair of DTN and those vicious beasts, how did I end up in a demon's den again? It was in despair. It had thought it found a perfect host. But who could have imagined that inside this ant-like being who seemed to be only rank 10, there was an eerie statue that devoured souls. Outside, Huo Yuhao sat cross-legged, sensing the massive upheaval within his sea of consciousness. He didn't panic, instead, he watched the scene with great interest. Is this the second spirit that I've never been able to manifest? Huo Yuhao's consciousness hovered above the sea of consciousness, observing the giant withered wood statue that was frantically devouring the heavenly dream ice worm. Withered wood-like material, 9 eyes, 10 protrusions, this shape, isn't it the ghetto statue? So that's how it is. My second spirit is actually the husk of the 10 tails, the ghetto statue. Within the sea of consciousness, the heavenly dream ice worm had already been dragged to the edge of the ghetto statue's mouth. Kid, make it stop, otherwise, I'll detonate my origin and take you down with me. The heavenly dream ice worm roared hysterically, with the self-detonation of a million-year spirit beast, you will definitely die instantly. If I die, don't think you'll have it easy either. Huo Yuhao watched this scene coldly, a mocking arc curling at the corner of his mouth. Oh, threatening me. If it were the weak Huo Yuhao from the original story, he might be afraid. But me. Then you can try. Huo Yuhao's voice echoed within the sea of consciousness. If it's the ghetto statue, the husk of the 10 tails, then, how could a mere worm's origin even talk about resisting? As if to confirm Huo Yuhao's thoughts. Crack. The purple chain suddenly tightened, and the suction force instantly increased tenfold. Worm, get into the trash bin. No. Accompanied by one last desperate scream, the heavenly dream ice worm's massive mental origin, along with its consciousness, was swallowed in one gulp by the ghetto statue. Crunch. The statue's large mouth closed. The world became quiet. The incessant chattering was gone. You didn't actually think you could defeat me, did you? Ridiculous. From this moment on, within Huo Yuhao's sea of consciousness, there was no longer a heavenly dream ice worm with questionable loyalty, only the absolutely loyal mental origin and the ghetto statue. Huo Yuhao slowly opened his eyes. An unprecedented feeling of comfort spread throughout his body. It was the feeling of being completely reborn. The pure energy from the heavenly dream ice worm, transformed by the ghetto statue, was washing through Huo Yuhao's meridians. His originally blocked meridians were forced open, and the speed of his spirit power circulation was dozens of times faster than before. His bones made crisp popping sounds like roasted beans, and his muscles became firmer. More importantly, spirit power. The bottleneck that had been stagnant at rank 10 shattered instantly. Rank 11, rank 12, it surged all the way to rank 15 before slowly coming to a halt. Huo Yuhao clenched his fists, feeling the surging power within his body. Beneath his feet, a ring of lustrous white spirit ring slowly rose. Although its color was white, Huo Yuhao could feel the terrifying power contained within this spirit ring. This was his first spirit ring. A million years. Chapter 5, 5 Elements Release, Bloodline Limit, Electrolux. Before Huo Yuhao could recover from the afterglow of his surging power, the cold system notification sounded in his mind again. Ding. Aikibi, Heavenly Dream Ice Worm, capture complete. Ghetto Statue Awakening, Yin Release Chakra. Huo Yuhao had a thought, and his consciousness once again dove into his sea of consciousness. The ghetto statue, which had originally been withered and lifeless, had changed. Among its 9 tightly closed eyes, the lowest one had now slowly opened. Aikibi, Heavenly Dream Ice Worm. Seeing this, Huo Yuhao understood. It seemed that the ghetto statue's judgment mechanism recognized the top-tier spirit beasts of this world as tailed beasts. After devouring the million-year Heavenly Dream Ice Worm, one eye was lit up. Yin Release represents mental force. This was consistent with the Heavenly Dream Ice Worm's attributes. He quickly glanced at the system light screen. Fire, wind, lightning, earth, water, yin, yang. Do I possess all 7 innate attributes? By continuously devouring tailed beasts and strengthening attributes, can I fuse even more bloodline limits in the future? Develop boil release, dust release, and perhaps even, the truth-seeking orb. Just as he was immersed in planning his future, a sudden anomaly from the outside world snapped him back to alertness. The sky seemed to crack open. A gray stream of air descended from the sky without any warning. It was as fast as a gray bolt of lightning, and in just an instant, it accurately drilled into the back of Huo Yuhao's head. A chilling sensation, desolate, ancient, and carrying a dense aura of death, instantly swept through his body. It's here. The necromancer holy mage god, calamity of the undead, Electrolux. Huo Yuhao did not panic. As someone familiar with the plot, he had been waiting for this moment. The gray stream of air violently intruded into the sea of consciousness, transforming into a gray orb of light suspended midair. Boom. Almost simultaneously, the ghetto statue, sitting cross-legged in the abyss, trembled violently. For the ghetto statue, this wisp of pure divine sense from Electrolux was simply the most delicious supplement. Several purple chakra chains stirred restlessly, wanting to swallow the gray orb of light just as they had preyed on the heavenly dream ice worm. Stop. Huo Yuhao's will instantly descended, controlling the statue immediately. Under his control, the ghetto statue fell silent again. The gray stream of air seemed to notice something as well. An old and weak voice, tinged with surprise, echoed in the sea of consciousness. What an interesting little fellow. Despite having such a weak body, you harbor a monster in your sea of consciousness that even this old man cannot fathom. Although Electrolux was only a wisp of remnant soul, his intuition as a former demigod remained. He could clearly sense the threat posed by the withered wooden statue below him. That was a suppression of status. But what surprised him more was that this terrifying statue was completely controlled by this human boy. Moreover, in that instant just now, the boy actively prevented the statue from devouring him. Kindness, is it? The old man sighed. It seems this old man's luck isn't too bad. Since you don't intend to kill me, I shall stay here for a while. Once this old man awakens, I will grant you an opportunity. After saying this, the gray stream of air gradually retracted, turning into a gray bead that quietly floated in the corner of the sea of consciousness, facing the ghetto statue from afar, staying out of each other's way. Stardo Great Forest, by the stream. Huo Yuhao slowly opened his eyes and let out a long breath. The 2 biggest cheats were tentatively secured. He stood up and stretched his slightly stiff neck. Next, it was time to try some actual combat. As the ghetto statue devoured the heavenly dream ice worm and opened its first eye, Huo Yuhao's understanding of this second spirit also deepened. The ghetto statue could not directly use first spirit ability, or second spirit ability, like an ordinary spirit. It was more like a key that granted him the use of ninjutsu. After mastering it proficiently, Huo Yuhao could use it to mobilize the tailed beast power. Right now, I only know the Great Fireball technique, and that beggar's version of wood release, Obito's version. If I want to learn more ninjutsu, I can only rely on myself to figure it out. Just as he was contemplating how to replicate ninjutsu in the Douluo Plain while heading deeper into the forest. Sha sha sha, a burst of hurried friction interrupted his thoughts. A fishy, sweet smell assaulted his senses. Huo Yuhao abruptly turned his head. A pink bolt of lightning shot out from the bushes on the left. It was a large snake, over 3 meters long, its entire body displaying an eerie peach red color. Datura snake. Judging by its size and sheen, it had at least 1,000 years of cultivation. Is this the one Bebe hunted in the original work? The Datura snake opened its large mouth and lunged straight for Huo Yuhao's face. Too fast. If it were an ordinary one-ring soul master, they would probably be a corpse by now. But Huo Yuhao calmly took half a step back. Spirit possession. Buzz. A circle of crystal white spirit ring lit up beneath his feet. His left eye was deep azure, seemingly containing a sea of stars. While his right eye instantly turned crimson, with 3 pitch black tomo spinning rapidly. Left eye spirit eyes, right eye Sharingan. The world became completely different in his eyes. His dynamic vision slowed the lightning fast movement into frame-by-frame slow motion. Huo Yuhao didn't even dodge, a cold smile curling on his lips. First spirit ability, spiritual detection. At the same time, he raised his right hand. The chakra and spirit power within his body frantically intertwined and poured into his right arm. Wood release, exploding tree spear. Buff. A seemingly ordinary, sharp wooden stake, about the thickness of an adult's arm, shot out instantly with a sound of tearing air. Fast, accurate, ruthless. Under the precise calculation of spiritual detection, the wooden stake accurately predicted the Datura snake's landing spot. Gucci. The wooden stake fiercely pierced the Datura snake's vital spot, nailing it directly in midair, and then, without losing momentum, slammed heavily into the large tree behind it. Hiss. The Datura snake frantically writhed its body, emitting a mournful hiss. It's not over yet. Huo Yuhao clenched his right hand slightly. The wooden stake embedded in the snake's body instantly came alive, frantically absorbing the spirit power and life essence within the Datura snake. Countless tiny roots quickly sprouted from the surface of the stake, spreading and branching inside the snake's body. In just 2 breaths, the Datura snake's strong body visibly withered at a speed noticeable to the naked eye, its struggles weakened, and the fierce light in its eyes dissipated. This was the terrifying aspect of wood release. It wasn't just a simple physical attack, it also possessed the power of devouring. That's enough. Huo Yuhao looked at the dying Datura snake, preparing to deliver the final blow. He released his right hand, and the wooden stake snapped, remaining inside the snake. He formed hand seals with both hands. Just as he was about to use the Great Fireball technique to deliver the final strike. Little brother, wait a moment. An anxious shout came from the woods diagonally behind him. Immediately after, 2 figures rushed out somewhat raggedly. Leading the way was a gentle and refined young man, followed by a pretty girl. It was none other than Bebe and Tangya. Bebe looked at the 1,000-year Datura snake nailed by the wooden stake, a trace of shock flashing in his eyes. He quickly cupped his hands, his tone sincere and urgent. Little brother, please spare its life. We have been tracking this Datura snake for a long time, and it is very important to us. Chapter 6, Copy I, Awakening Lightning Release Ninjutsu, 5 Spirit King. Huo Yuhao stood beside the dying Datura snake, turning his head slightly. His heterochromatic pupils were locked onto the two figures emerging from the forest. His left eye was a clear, ethereal azure spirit eye. His right eye was a crimson, eerie three-tomo Sharingan. Under the gaze of these strange eyes, Bebe couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. He felt as if all his flaws were completely exposed. What is it? Huo Yuhao's voice was cold, with clear displeasure. Bebe took a deep breath, adjusted his tense nerves, and put on a gentle smile, trying to convey goodwill. Don't be nervous, little brother. Let me introduce myself. I am Bebe, a student from Shrek Academy. He turned and pointed to the girl in pink behind him. She is Tangya. Bebe cupped his hands again, his tone sincere. Little brother, this Datura snake is the target we've been tracking, and it's very important to Xiaoya. Would you be so kind as to let us have it? As if afraid Huo Yuhao would misunderstand that they intended to seize it by force, Bebe immediately added. Of course, we would never take your spoils of war for free. We will give you adequate compensation. Huo Yuhao raised an eyebrow slightly. Shrek Academy, is the original plotline starting to converge already? Words alone are not proof. Huo Yuhao pointed to the snake on the ground. You say you've been hunting it all along, where's the evidence? In this forest, whoever kills a spirit beast owns it. You can't just expect me to hand over what's already mine just because you say so. Bebe, hearing this, actually breathed a sigh of relief. It's good that he's willing to reason. He was afraid of someone who would just start fighting at the slightest disagreement. That's simple. Little brother, you can check. There are several obvious scorch marks on the snake's belly. Those are traces left by a lightning spirit ability. Huo Yuhao looked as instructed. Under the subtle observation of spiritual detection, he indeed found traces of electrical burns. This is the damage I just inflicted on it with my second spirit ability, Thunder's Might. To completely dispel Huo Yuhao's doubts. Watch closely. Crack. A crisp sound. Beibe's arms instantly changed. His originally slender arms bulged with muscle, covered in a layer of fine blue-purple dragon scales, and his palms transformed into ferocious dragon claws. 2 yellow and 1 purple spirit ring pulsed at his feet. That was the top-tier beast spirit, Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon. Second spirit ability, Thunder's Might. Bebe let out a low roar and swung a claw at a large tree nearby, thick enough for an embrace. Countless fine serpentine lightning bolts instantly magnified in the air, forming a dense net of thunder, enveloping the tree with a piercing roar. Boom. There was no violent explosion, but the trunk of the large tree instantly turned scorched black, then snapped with a crack, and fell to the ground. Blue electric arcs still flickered at the break. Huo Yuhao's crimson right eye, however, was now rotating wildly. Is this how spirit abilities work? Under the insight of the Sharingan, Beibe's spirit power flow trajectory was now clearly presented in Huo Yuhao's mind. At this moment, a flash of realization rose in Huo Yuhao's heart. So that's how it is. In this world, I don't understand the principles of ninjutsu. But I can use the copy of the Sharingan to analyze the principles of spirit abilities. As long as I understand how he generates lightning through spirit power, I can draw inferences and simulate ninjutsu with chakra. The door to lightning release ninjutsu has opened. The demonstration complete, Bebe retracted his spirit, his breathing steady. How about it, little brother, do you believe me now? The red light in Huo Yuhao's eyes gradually faded. He nodded, and with a wave of his right hand, the wooden stake embedded in the Datura snake's body instantly broke and dissipated. Since you found it first, take it. Great. Tangya cheered, jumping up like a rabbit. Thank you, little brother. You're such a good person. She eagerly pulled out a short blade and ended the Datura snake's life. A purple spirit ring slowly emerged. Tangya immediately sat cross-legged and began to guide and absorb the spirit ring. Bebe stood nearby, seemingly casual, but his body was tense, on the one hand protecting Tangya, and on the other, remaining vigilant towards Huo Yuhao. After all, that strange wood release and the red eye were still fresh in his memory. Little brother, what's your name? Bebe tried to break the silence. You don't look very old. Why are you venturing deep into the Stardew Great Forest alone? It's very dangerous here. Huo Yuhao didn't answer immediately. With a thought, the spirit ring at his feet, disguised as yellow, slowly rose. Huo Yuhao. He said indifferently, the purpose of this trip is to obtain a spirit ring. Seeing that yellow 100-year spirit ring, the usually composed Bebe finally lost his composure. His pupils suddenly constricted, and his voice unconsciously rose a few octaves. First ring, you're a one-ring soul master. How is this possible? A storm raged in Beibe's heart. That ability to pin a 1,000-year Datura snake to a tree, was it released by a one-ring soul master with only one spirit ring? Even I would have to put in some effort to defeat this Datura snake. How many levels is he? 11, 12. Yuhao little brother, how did you defeat the 1,000-year spirit beast? Bebe couldn't help but ask. This completely overturned his common knowledge as a spirit master. Huo Yuhao was about to fabricate an excuse to brush it off. Suddenly, swish swish swish. Several whooshing sounds came from overhead. Several large wind baboons, grasping vines, swung with momentum, screaming as they charged towards Tangya, who was absorbing the spirit ring. They were attracted by the scent of blood and wanted to take the opportunity to ambush. One had already spat out a wind bomb. Watch out. Beibe's expression changed, and he was about to make a move. No need. Huo Yuhao coldly uttered 2 words. He raised his hands, his fingertips rapidly changing, forming a series of hand seals Bebe had never seen before. Having just analyzed the principles of Thunder's Might, it's a good chance to try it out on you. Huo Yuhao's chakra instantly became violent and sharp, surging through his meridians to his hands. Since you asked what my spirit is, then watch closely. Lightning release, lightning prison. Sizzle sizzle sizzle. As Huo Yuhao completed the last hand seal, no spirit ring flashed, but a dazzling blue light suddenly erupted in the air. Centered around the wind baboons, dozens of azure lightning bolts appeared out of thin air, intertwining and connecting, instantly forming a 3-dimensional lightning cage. Screech. The wind baboons crashed into the lightning bars, instantly charred black by the high-voltage current. Before they could even scream, they fell straight to the ground, emitting black smoke. The wind bomb they had spat out also dissipated into nothingness. This move combined the thunder's might he had just copied. Although still crude, its power was astonishing. Baibei's mouth hung open, looking at the charred corpses on the ground, then back at Huo Yuhao. The shock in Baibei's eyes intensified. What kind of spirit is this? From my observation, he should be a plant-type spirit master, shouldn't he? How could he possibly unleash lightning attribute attacks? A mutated spirit. Moreover, that lightning cage just now, the lightning fluctuations within it actually bore similarities to my thunder's might. How did he do it? Huo Yuhao retracted his hands, his expression calm. My spirit is called Elementalist. It can control the 5 great elements. This statement was half true, half false, but it was enough to plunge Beibei into deeper self-doubt and shock. Control the 5 great elements. Beibei's brain raced. As a direct descendant of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon clan and one of the Shrek Academy Outer Court's twin stars, he prided himself on having seen countless peculiar spirits. But, Elementalist, controlling the 5 great elements. This was simply a fantasy. Even the elders of the Sea God Pavilion could often only use 1 or 2 elements. Beibei glanced at Tang Ya, who was absorbing the spirit ring beside him, and secretly calculated. The Tang sect is currently in decline and desperately needs fresh blood. Although this young man has an aloof and solitary personality and a mysterious background, his strength and talent are simply astounding. If he could be brought into the Tang sect. Chapter 7, Respecting Teachers Like Nagato, the Plan to Infiltrate Shrek. Beibei looked at the indifferent youth before him and took a deep breath, forcibly calming the waves in his heart. Yuhao. Beibei asked tentatively, his eyes fixed on Huo Yuhao, you are so young and possess such amazing talent, why did you come to the Stardew Great Forest alone to hunt for a spirit ring? Where are your elders? This was the most critical question. If he had no sect, then he was a piece of unpolished jade, the hope for the Tang sect's revival. Before Huo Yuhao could answer, a wave of spirit power pulsed from behind. Phew, finally done. Tang Ya stretched, the light of the 3rd spirit ring on her body gradually fading. Although she had been absorbing the spirit ring just now, her senses weren't completely closed, and she had vaguely heard their conversation. Now that she was finished, she was even more excited than Beibei. With a flash of her body, she rushed in front of Huo Yuhao. Little Yuhao, is what you said just now true? You can control 5 elements. Stars twinkled in those large eyes, as if she were looking at some rare treasure. Huo Yuhao looked at the pretty face pressed so close to him, but his heart remained icy cold. She wants to recruit me. Tang sect, Shrek. Huo Yuhao quickly weighed the pros and cons in his mind. That God King Tang sits high in the God realm, to what extent does his surveillance of this plane reach? In that case, I might as well follow Uchiha Obito's example. Temporarily enter the game and lurk beneath the shadows. As for being brainwashed. HMPH, how could I possibly be assimilated by that hypocritical Shrek glory? Having thought this through, the indifference in Huo Yuhao's eyes instantly melted away. Changing faces without a hitch, a smile curled at the corners of his mouth. Best actor mode, activated. It's absolutely true. Huo Yuhao nodded, his hands forming seals. The principle behind those baboons spitting wind bullets just now, I've already copied it with my Sharingan. Rat, rabbit, dog. His chest puffed out as chakra compressed rapidly toward his mouth. Wind release, vacuum wave. Puff, puff, puff. Huo Yuhao opened his mouth and spat out not a simple mass of wind, but several high-pressure wind spheres as sharp as bullets. The wind spheres sliced through the air, letting out sharp whistles. Crack, crack. A dozen meters away, several trees as thick as a bowl snapped, their cuts as smooth as a mirror. This power was more than 10 times stronger than the wind baboon's attack just now. It's not over yet. Huo Yuhao's hands shifted again. Snake, ram, monkey, boar, horse, tiger. Fire release, great fireball technique. Boom. The massive fireball illuminated the forest once more, the rolling heat waves forcing Tang Ya and Beibei to take 2 steps back. Huo Yuhao did not continue the demonstration, the two were already completely convinced. Tang Ya's mouth hung open wide enough to fit an egg. Beibei's gaze was also dull. Although he had been mentally prepared, seeing someone switch attributes as easily as eating or drinking still made him feel like his worldview was being shattered. It's actually real. Tang Ya murmured to herself. She suddenly grabbed Huo Yuhao's shoulders, her tone urgent. Little Yuhao, where is your family? Which family are you from? Who is your teacher? Huo Yuhao lowered his eyelids slightly to hide the flash of cold light. Family. In this life, my mother Huo Yunsun is my only family. As for the others, they are all on my kill list. He looked up, his face showing a perfectly timed touch of loneliness and sorrow. My family is called the 5 Spirits family, once a great hidden clan. But, it has perished. After my mother passed away, I am the only one left in this world. These words were half true and half false, making them most moving. Hearing this, Tang Ya was first stunned, but then a look of wild joy actually appeared on her face as she blurted out. Really, that's wonderful. The air instantly froze. Beibei's expression changed drastically, and he quickly pulled Tang Ya back, shouting in a low voice, Xiao Ya. What are you saying? Huo Yuhao's right hand suddenly clenched tight. In that instant, a surge of tyrannical killing intent almost broke through the dam of his reason. Wonderful. My mother died tragically, I am displaced and homeless, and in your eyes, it's wonderful. If I wanted to, at this distance, I could instantly perform White Zetsu possession and launch wood release, advent of a world of flowering trees. Letting countless branches pierce through her body. But he ultimately held back. He took a deep breath, replaying the experience of Tang Ya's sect being wiped out in his mind countless times before finally suppressing that bloodthirsty impulse. Calm down. This woman is also a poor soul whose whole family was exterminated. In a sense, she is also a joke. For the sake of my great revenge, I will endure this slight. At this time, Tang Ya also realized she had misspoken. Her pretty face turned bright red, and she waved her hands in an urgent explanation. No, 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 I didn't mean that, it wasn't intentional. She looked at Huo Yuhao cautiously, and seeing that he hadn't lashed out, she breathed a sigh of relief and asked tentatively. Little Yuhao, since you are alone now and have nowhere to go, why don't you join our sect? Huo Yuhao sneered in his heart, but on his face, he showed a slightly confused fake smile. Oh, what is your sect? Tang Ya immediately puffed out her chest. Although the current Tang sect only had a few members left, the pride engraved in her bones remained. The Tang sect, once the number one sect on the continent. She began, just like in the original story, to talk incessantly about the glory of the ancestor Tang San 10,000 years ago, the magic of hidden weapons, and the current decline and vision for revival. Huo Yuhao listened patiently, nodding in agreement at the right times, while constantly mocking her in his heart. When Tang Ya finished, Huo Yuhao spoke slowly, hitting the nail on the head. It sounds somewhat similar to my family. However, he looked at Tang Ya, his eyes showing a pragmatism and shrewdness that didn't match his age. If I join the Tang sect, what can I get? Tang Ya clearly hadn't expected this seemingly honest child to be so direct. She was stunned for a moment, then looked at Bebe. Bebe immediately took over, the Tang sect's ultimate techniques. Mysterious Heaven Skill, Ghost Shadow Perplexing Track, Purple Demon Eye, Controlling Crane Catching Dragon, and Mysterious Jade Hand. All of these can be taught to you. Especially the Mysterious Heaven Skill, it is upright and peaceful, and it will definitely be of great benefit to your elementalist spirit. Speaking to this point, Bebe paused and threw out the biggest bait. Furthermore, the Tang sect has one quota for admission to Shrek Academy without an entrance exam every year. As long as you join, this quota is yours. Huo Yuhao pretended to hesitate for a moment, his brow furrowing slightly as if weighing the options. Seeing this, Bebe struck while the iron was hot. Yuhao, you must think carefully. One person's strength is ultimately limited. By joining a sect and having Shrek Academy as your backing, your talent can truly be realized. A moment of silence followed. Huo Yuhao looked up, a sincere smile appearing on his face. Alright, I agree. Yay. Tang Ya jumped up in excitement, her hands thrust toward the sky, terrific. The Tang sect finally has a third person. And a peerless genius at that. Yuhao, you truly are someone who dares to enter the Stardew Great Forest alone. This forest indeed never lacks geniuses. Tang Ya also calmed down from her excitement. Since he had joined the sect, rules had to be established. She retracted her smile, her expression becoming serious as she stared into Huo Yuhao's eyes. Yuhao, since you've decided to join the Tang sect, some things must be said up front. Upon entering my Tang sect, you must never betray the sect or commit acts that deceive your masters and destroy your ancestors. At this very moment, Huo Yuhao raised his right hand, his expression solemn and his gaze firm, as if performing a sacred oath. Sect leader, rest assured. I, Huo Yuhao, hereby swear. At this point, he paused, a slight curve appearing at the corner of his mouth. I will be like my clan senior, the five spirits Douluo, Nagato, and respect my teachers in the Tao. Tang Ya and Bebe glanced at each other, both seeing the shock in each other's eyes. Five spirits Douluo, Nagato. Although they hadn't heard of this title, since he was a titled Douluo, he must have been a peerless powerhouse who was highly respected and honored his teachers. Good, with such an ancestral role model, we can rest easy. Tang Ya nodded with satisfaction. Only Huo Yuhao himself knew what that red-haired man named Nagato had actually done, and how he had personally killed his own mentor, Jiraiya. If Tang Ya and Bebe knew this story, their expressions would surely be quite spectacular. Chapter 8, Awakening the Young Madara Template. In the Stardew Great Forest, a group of three was traveling at high speed. Huo Yuhao followed behind Bebe and Tang Ya, the three Tomo Sharingan in his right eye occasionally flashing with an eerie red light. He hadn't been idle along the way. He kept activating his Sharingan. He had also completely mastered the principles of the remaining water and earth style ninjutsu. Thus, the name, Five Spirit King, was truly well deserved. Little Yuhao. Tang Ya, who was walking in front, suddenly turned her head and stared curiously at Huo Yuhao's right eye, which he hadn't had time to close yet. I've been wanting to ask, why does this eye of yours turn red? Huo Yuhao's footsteps paused slightly. It was time, since he intended to make use of the Tang sect and Shrek, appropriately demonstrating his talent was a necessary bargaining chip. The act had to be complete. He slowly raised his head, letting that crimson Sharingan and his azure spirit eyes gaze at Tang Ya simultaneously, as he dropped the bombshell in a calm tone. Because I have twin spirits. What? Tang Ya and Bebe stopped in their tracks at the same time, crying out in surprise. Although Bebe had guessed it long ago, hearing it confirmed with his own ears still caused waves of shock to surge in his heart. He's also a twin spirit user. A mental attribute body martial soul, the spirit eyes, plus an elementalist with control over 5 elements, calling this a genius is an understatement, he's a total prodigy. Fantastic, this is wonderful. Tang Ya's face flushed with excitement, and she grabbed Bebe's arm, shaking it enthusiastically. Bebe, did you hear that? Twin spirits. With little Yuhao, there's definitely hope for the revival of our Tang sect. Yes, it must be so. Watching Tang Ya's simple-minded excitement, Huo Yuhao felt no ripples in his heart, only offering a shy smile in cooperation. For the next stretch of the journey, Tang Ya's attitude toward Huo Yuhao became even more enthusiastic. She couldn't wait to impart the general principles of the Mysterious Heaven Treasure Record, as well as the cultivation methods for the Mysterious Heaven Skill, Ghost Shadow Perplexing Track, and other ultimate techniques to Huo Yuhao during their rest breaks. Huo Yuhao sat cross-legged on a green rock, attempting to circulate the Mysterious Heaven Skill according to the formulas Tang Ya had taught him. A balanced and peaceful current of air flowed slowly through his meridians. Is this the Tang sect's ultimate technique, the Mysterious Heaven Skill? Huo Yuhao felt the efficiency of that current and couldn't help but snort in disdain. It was too mediocre. Compared to the chakra extraction method mastered by the 13-year-old Obito, which was granted by the system, it wasn't much more advanced. But he didn't stop the circulation. Because a crazy idea had suddenly occurred to him. Since I am a transmigrator, can this spirit power and the chakra from the Naruto world be fused? No sooner said than done. Huo Yuhao carefully mobilized a stream of blue spirit power from his dantian and extracted a stream of violent chakra from his cells. Two completely different energies met within his meridians. Fuse. Buzz. Huo Yuhao's body shuddered violently. In his internal vision, the two energies did not repel each other or explode, instead, they blended like milk and water, forming a white energy vortex. Immediately after, a scorching warm current instantly swept through his entire body. Is this the activity of the Hashirama cells being activated? Those were the Hashirama cells granted by the Enraged Child template. Under the catalysis of the endless vitality characteristic of the mysterious heaven skill, they were completely activated, strengthening Huo Yuhao's originally weak physical body. His meridians were widened, and their resilience enhanced. His muscle fibers became more compact. The spirit power bottleneck that was originally stuck at rank 15 instantly loosened under the impact of this fused energy. Poof. A soft sound rang out. Huo Yuhao opened his eyes and exhaled a breath of white mist. Rank 16. Furthermore, this body was finally no longer trash. Shrek City. The magnificent city walls stretched to the east and west, with no end in sight. However, when Tangya and Beibei brought Huo Yuhao here, they didn't enter the city directly. Instead, they led him around the towering city walls for a good half circle. It wasn't until Huo Yuhao grew somewhat impatient that they finally arrived at the main gate of Shrek Academy. This is also one of Shrek's rules. Beibei looked at Huo Yuhao and explained with a smile, to prevent students from playing around due to the prosperity of Shrek City, even though the academy is located within the city, it cannot be entered directly from inside. All new students must detour to the outer city gate to temper their hard nature. Huo Yuhao looked up at the glittering golden plaque that read, Shrek Academy. Tempering hard nature. Making students waste time and physical energy on meaningless detours is what they call tempering. What truly extraordinary wisdom this regulation shows. One could see the eccentricity of this academy just from this gate. Suppressing the mockery in his heart, Huo Yuhao followed the two into the continent's #1 academy. Academic Affairs Office. Beibei familiarly led Huo Yuhao and knocked on the door of the director's office. Sitting behind the desk was a middle-aged man wearing glasses, looking very elegant and scholarly. It was the dean of students, Du Weilan. Dean Du, this is a new disciple our Tang sect has recruited, and also a freshman for this year. He's here to register. Du Weilan pushed up his glasses, his gaze falling on Huo Yuhao. He picked up a pen and asked as a matter of routine, name, age, spirit power rank, spirit. Huo Yuhao took a step forward, his voice calm and confident. Huo Yuhao, 11 years old. Spirits, spirit eyes, elementalist. Spirit power, rank 16. The pen in Du Weilan's hand paused abruptly. He looked up sharply, his eyes widening behind his lenses. What did you say? Spirit eyes, elementalist. You're saying you have two spirits, twin spirits. And, what is an elementalist? Huo Yuhao didn't waste words and simply spread his palm. Above his 5 fingertips, 5 colors of light flashed alternately. Red for fire, blue for water, azure for wind, yellow for earth, and purple for lightning. I can control 5 elements. Furthermore, they can fuse, and they can grow as I grow. Du Weilan could no longer remain seated. He walked directly around the desk and came before Huo Yuhao. Don't move, let me check. He pressed his hand against Huo Yuhao's chest, and a stream of soft spirit power probed inside. Such pure elemental fluctuations, and the 5 attributes have actually achieved a perfect balance within his body. How is this possible? The way he looked at Huo Yuhao changed. He was no longer looking at a student, but at a rare treasure. A genius? No, this is a monster. Du Weilan took a deep breath, forcing down the excitement in his heart. Huo Yuhao, the matter of twin spirits is of great importance. Dean Yan Xiaojie is currently not in the academy, so I cannot directly assign your status. How about this, you enroll normally first. Once the dean returns, I will report it immediately. This matter must be decided by the dean himself. As if afraid Huo Yuhao would feel dissatisfied due to treatment issues, Du Weilan placed both hands on Huo Yuhao's shoulders and promised solemnly. Child, I can responsibly tell you, you are the #1 talent to ever enroll in this academy in the last 100 years. The academy will definitely not mistreat you. Your future is boundless. Huo Yuhao looked at Du Weilan's face, which was somewhat lost in excitement, and nodded slightly. Thank you, Dean. A surge of wild joy indeed rose in his heart. But it wasn't because of Du Weilan's empty promises, nor because of being the so-called #1 genius. It was because at the exact moment Du Weilan said the words, #1 genius in a century, that cold system notification sounded in his mind like heavenly music. Ding. Detected that the host has been certified as the #1 genius in a century. Uchiha Madara young template, awakened. Boom. An overbearing will instantly descended upon Huo Yuhao's sea of consciousness. If Obito's power was dark, twisted, and full of schemes, then this power was arrogant, aloof, and crushing everything. Rewards distributed. Uchiha style taijutsu proficient. Uchiha style shurikenjutsu proficient. Fire release, Phoenix Sage fire technique. Special evolution, left spirit eye fusing with Sharingan. Huo Yuhao felt a burning heat in his left eye. His originally azure spirit eye was undergoing a qualitative change. The Sharingan that previously only existed in his right eye was now actually emerging in his left eye as well, perfectly overlapping with the spirit eye. Although the left eye was only a 1 tomo, he now possessed a true, complete pair of Sharingan. The condition for unlocking Obito's template was guidance and behind the scenes, suitable for achieving goals through calculations in the shadows. While the condition for unlocking Madara's template was suppression of rank and power, suitable for demonstrating absolute dominance on the frontal battlefield. 1 in the light and 1 in the dark, 1 yin and 1 yang. Since he had Lord Madara's power, then this Shrek Academy might become a bit more interesting. Here are your dormitory keys and school uniform. Du Weilan personally handed the items to Huo Yuhao, his attitude kind and amiable. Huo Yuhao took the items and walked out of the office with Beibei. In the hallway, Beibei picked up the class assignment list and took a look. The smile that was originally on his face instantly froze, and his brows furrowed tightly. Yuhao, you might be in trouble. Why? Huo Yuhao asked casually, feeling in a good mood. Beibei sighed and pointed at the name on the list, his tone heavy. You've been assigned to class 1. Your first-year homeroom teacher is Zhou Yi. She is a notorious psycho in the outer court. Her teaching methods are extremely strict, one could even say cruel. If you fall into her hands, you lose a layer of skin even if you don't die. Huo Yuhao stopped in his tracks, looking at the two words, Zhou Yi, on the list. Strict, cruel, a psycho. He gave a cold laugh in his heart. The arrogant figure of the young Uchiha Madara seemed to be overlapping with him. Want to give me a show of authority? Huo Yuhao's eyes narrowed slightly, as if flames were burning deep within his pupils. Zhou Yi, do you also want to dance? Chapter 9, Crushing Wang Dong, the battlefield rose. Having bid farewell to Beibei and Tang Ya, Huo Yuhao followed the directions toward the freshman dormitory building. Huo Yuhao stood in the hallway, his brow furrowing slightly. He took a brief scan of the floor's layout, and his expression immediately darkened. What's going on? Over 100 rooms on one floor, yet only those two public toilets at the end. Huo Yuhao did a quick mental calculation. Over 400 people sharing one toilet. This is the continent's #1 academy. Truly laughable. Suppressing his displeasure, he found his assigned dormitory, room 108. He pushed open the door, and a cloud of dust billowed out. Clearly, no one had lived here for a long time. Huo Yuhao didn't go looking for a broom like an ordinary student would. He walked to the window and pushed it open. His hands quickly formed seals in front of his chest. A perfect chance to test the wind release he had just awakened. Wind release, gale palm. Huo Yuhao thrust his palms forward, and a powerful yet controlled current of air instantly erupted within the small room. Whoosh. The fierce wind acted like an invisible giant hand, precisely swirling up all the dust in the room and sending it all out through the window. In just a single breath, the room was completely refreshed. Huo Yuhao scanned the area, 2 simple wooden beds, no private bathroom. Though simple, it was at least 100 times better than that woodshed in the Duke's mansion. He nodded and prepared to make his bed. Just then, with a creak, the door was pushed open. A figure walked in. It was a youth of similar age, with rare pinkish blue short hair and features that were excessively delicate. His skin was as fair as jade, even finer than a girl's, with a pair of large, watery eyes and long, curled eyelashes. Huo Yuhao glanced at him. This appearance was a bit like the femboys he had seen in his previous life. He looked a bit like Haku from Naruto, but a different kind of Haku. Seeing how tidy the room was, the youth was momentarily stunned. Then, he walked up to Huo Yuhao, chin tilted slightly up, and spoke in a matter-of-fact tone. You're in this dorm too, right? Since you've cleaned the place so well, I'll allow you to stay here with me for now. I have a few rules you need to remember. He extended his slender fingers and began listing them one by one. First, no bringing people back to the dorm without permission. Second, no walking around naked, it's disgusting. Third, no snoring at night. Fourth, don't disturb me. Fifth, the dorm's cleaning is your responsibility from now on, but don't touch my bed. Having finished, he crossed his arms and looked at Huo Yuhao as if granting a favor. Is that clear? Huo Yuhao's hand, which was making the bed, stopped. That familiar, condescending feeling instantly reminded him of that person in the Duke's mansion. Dai Wabin, this commanding tone of, I allow you, and, you must listen to me, was exactly the same. Huo Yuhao turned around abruptly. Those eyes, originally calm, had now become incredibly frigid. 1 tomo in the left eye, 3 tomo in the right. A pair of Sharingan, carrying a cold-killing intent as if from a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood, stared fixedly at Wang Dong. So noisy. Huo Yuhao's voice was as low as a cold wind. Are you finished? Wang Dong had intended to say more, but when his eyes met Huo Yuhao's, he froze instantly. What kind of gaze was that? In that moment, Wang Dong felt as if he were in a blood-colored Asura's battlefield. How could a literal killing intent like that be compared to by a little princess who had been pampered and held in the palm of the clear sky sect's hand since childhood? She subconsciously took half a step back, her face turning pale. But soon, the pride of being the young master of the clear sky sect made her feel a surge of shame and anger. I was actually scared by a commoner. Wang Dong took a deep breath and glared back, hiding her weakness behind a fierce front. You, what do you want? If you're not satisfied, I'll beat you into submission with my fists. He looks like just an ordinary commoner spirit master. Why should I, the young master of the clear sky sect and a genius with twin spirits, be afraid of him? A disdainful sneer curled at the corner of Huo Yuhao's mouth. TCH. He walked straight toward the door, and as he passed Wang Dong, he coldly spat out 3 words. Then let's go. ... On the open ground in front of the dormitory building. Wang Dong stood in the center of the field, took a deep breath, and instantly released his spirit. A brilliant blue-gold light exploded behind him, and a pair of exquisite radiant goddess butterfly wings spread out. Beneath his feet, 1 yellow and 1 purple spirit ring slowly rose. On the other hand, Huo Yuhao. He just stood there quietly as a single yellow 100-year spirit ring rose beneath his feet. 1 ring. Seeing that yellow spirit ring, the contempt in Wang Dong's eyes grew even stronger, and his previous fear was tossed to the back of his mind. Challenging me on purpose, are you looking for death? First spirit ability, Wing Guillotine. Wang Dong shouted as he leapt into the air. The edges of those brilliant butterfly wings became as sharp as blades. Accompanied by golden light, countless energy slashes poured down toward Huo Yuhao like a rainstorm. Facing this overwhelming attack, Huo Yuhao didn't even use ninjutsu to block. He simply activated his Sharingan. The world slowed down in his eyes. Under his dynamic vision, the trajectories of those lightning-fast energy slashes became clearly visible. Too slow. The movements are too wide. Huo Yuhao's footsteps interlaced as his body performed extreme evasions. Swish, swish, swish. Golden slashes brushed past his clothes and hair, but not a single one could actually touch his body. He strolled through the sky full of light blades as if walking in his own backyard garden. Curse your fate for not having the Sharingan. Huo Yuhao gave a cold snort and suddenly exerted force with his feet. Uchiha-style taijutsu. His figure instantly turned into an afterimage, passing through the net of slashes and appearing beneath Wang Dong in a flash. What? Wang Dong was shocked. She wanted to pull away, but it was already too late. Though she was a two-ring great soul master and had grown up eating whale glue, giving her physical fitness far beyond ordinary people. Faced with Huo Yuhao, who had fused with Hashirama cells and gained Uchiha Madara's combat experience, her close combat skills were like a child's game. Bang! The two clashed in midair. Huo Yuhao's movements were bold and expansive, every punch and kick carrying a beauty full of power. It was Uchiha-style taijutsu. Like a rose blooming on the battlefield, magnificent yet lethal. Bang, bang, bang. Huo Yuhao's elbow precisely parried Wang Dong's fist, and his knee followed through, driving toward her abdomen. Wang Dong could only defend passively. She was horrified to find that she was being completely suppressed in both strength and speed by this one-ring soul master. How is this possible? I am from the Clear Sky sect. Is this all your pride amounts to? Huo Yuhao's cold voice rang in her ear. By now, he had already landed. Looking at the somewhat flustered Wang Dong in midair, Huo Yuhao propped his hands on the ground and spun his legs violently. Like a Thomas Flare in breakdancing, or a life-harvesting scythe on the battlefield. A sharp sweep kick kicked up a current of air, directly sealing off Wang Dong's landing spot. Crack. Unable to dodge, Wang Dong was struck heavily on the ankle by the kick, losing her balance and falling pathetically to the ground. Covered in dust. The young master of the Clear Sky sect was actually beaten so miserably by a commoner. Shame, anger, and resentment instantly clouded Wang Dong's mind. You bastard. She snapped her head up, a hint of madness flashing in her eyes. The purple thousand-year spirit ring at her feet blazed with light. Second spirit ability, Light of the Butterfly Goddess. She recklessly released her strongest thousand-year spirit ability. A giant golden sphere of light condensed in front of her, the light power within it enough to heavily injure a three-ring spirit elder. The distance was too close. Huo Yuhao had no room to dodge at all. But he didn't plan on dodging either. HMPH. Huo Yuhao flipped his wrist, and a short blade appeared in his hand. It was the memento left to him by his mother, the white tiger dagger. Mom, watch me. Let me inherit your will. Instead of retreating, Huo Yuhao charged toward the blinding golden light. Absorb. The white tiger dagger's ability activated. The rank 5 spirit tool dagger frantically devoured the spirit power the moment it touched the light of the butterfly goddess. Wang Dong's eyes widened as she watched her proud thousand-year spirit ability dissolve as quickly as foam. What? My light of the butterfly goddess was actually absorbed. The next second, a cold light tore through the remaining mist of light. Huo Yuhao's figure broke through the golden light and appeared before Wang Dong. At this moment, the white tiger dagger was wreathed in a blinding yellow light, the energy fed back after absorbing the light of the butterfly goddess. Huo Yuhao had no intention of showing any mercy. His eyes were cold as ice, and the dagger in his hand was thrust heavily toward Wang Dong's head. It was a true killing move. It was a killing intent condensed from the ordeal of a clan extermination and countless life and death battles. How is this possible? Wang Dong watched the ever-expanding cold light, her pupils shrinking violently. In that moment, she truly felt the arrival of death. Her body trembled violently from fear, unable to even muster the thought of resisting. Am I going to die? Am I really going to die here? PFFT. A muffled thud. Dirt splattered. Wang Dong closed her eyes tightly, waiting for the pain to arrive. However, the expected death did not occur. Only a few strands of severed hair slowly drifted onto her cheek. The cold, gleaming white tiger dagger was buried deep in the dirt beside her ear, less than a centimeter away from her carotid artery. The sharp aura stung her skin. Wang Dong opened her eyes tremblingly. What met her eyes was Huo Yuhao's face, looking down with indifference and disdain written all over it. He slowly pulled out the dagger, casually flicked away the dirt, and without even glancing at Wang Dong, turned and walked toward the dormitory building. In the air, only his mocking words remained. Can't you even dance anymore? Fighting you is nothing more than playing house. You're an eyesore. Chapter 10, Obtaining Indra Chakra. Just as Huo Yuhao turned to walk toward the dormitory building, that long-lost electronic voice rang out in his mind once again. Ding. Host detected to have defeated a fated enemy. Reward distributed, Indra Chakra. Huo Yuhao's originally steady pace came to a sudden halt, his pupils shrinking slightly. Indra Chakra. As a transmigrator who had read Naruto thoroughly, he knew all too well the weight of those words. In that ninja world which emphasized bloodlines and fatalism, Indra was the progenitor of the Uchiha clan and the eldest son of the Six Paths Sage. The reason Uchiha Madara and Uchiha Sasuke could stand above the rest of their clan, awaken the Rinnegan, and even touch the domain of the Six Paths was precisely because they were the reincarnations of Indra, possessing this special chakra. This wasn't just an increase in energy. This was a sublimation of his destiny. Huo Yuhao closed his eyes, feeling a cold, noble purple energy instantly merge into his limbs and bones, finally gathering within those Sharingan eyes. The originally crimson three tomo seemed to become deeper, faintly exuding a pressure that made one tremble. With this, completing his revenge plan was only a matter of time. A cold sneer curled at the corner of Huo Yuhao's mouth as he walked straight into the dormitory building. At the entrance of the dormitory building, under the shade of a tree, an old man dressed simply with white hair was lying on a rocking chair, his eyes slightly closed as if he had already fallen asleep. But in his sea of consciousness, that brief yet fierce battle from just now was clearly replaying. Such sharp taijutsu, relying purely on physical strength and technique, he crushed the young master of the Clear Sky clan who possessed a thousand-year spirit ring. Elder Mu analyzed silently in his heart. Moreover, I vaguely feel that there is still a power hidden within this child's body that even I cannot see through. A cold and arrogant personality, ruthless actions. Elder Mu's eyelids twitched slightly. It seems I need to observe him a bit more. Is he worth me using the old method? One playing the good cop, one playing the bad cop. First suppress his arrogance, let him fall into a desperate situation, then bestow favors to give him a sense of belonging to Shrek. Ultimately, let him fully understand Shrek's glory, and willingly become a guardian of the academy, serving my Shrek. On the open ground. Wang Dong was still lying on the ground in a daze. She was in a wretched state, but the pain in her body was far less than the shock to her heart. Why? She looked at her trembling hands. I am the young master of the Clear Sky clan. I am a genius with twin spirits. I even have a 1,000-year spirit ring. Why was I beaten by a commoner, a guy with only a first ring, to the point where I couldn't even fight back? The moment Huo Yuhao's dagger stabbed down just now, she truly felt death. That look in his eyes, as if he viewed her as an ant and even felt that killing her would be an eyesore, was like a thorn deeply embedded in her self-esteem. Child. An old and gentle voice interrupted her self-doubt. Wang Dong raised her head blankly and saw the old man lying at the dormitory entrance. The old man still had his eyes closed, but his voice clearly entered her ears. There are people beyond people, and heavens beyond heavens. Compared to the vast world, we are all very small. Talent is certainly important, but heart nature is the key that determines how far you can go. Wang Dong was stunned. Although she was proud, she wasn't stupid. For this old man to say such things at this time, and to give her a feeling of being unfathomable, he was definitely not an ordinary dormitory manager. Even this senior says so. Could it be that that person really has something special about him? Or is it that I was too arrogant? Wang Dong took a deep breath, slowly stood up, and patted the dust off her clothes. She bowed deeply toward the old man. Thank you for your teachings, old sir. Even though she lost, the pride of the Clear Sky sect did not allow her to become dejected. I won't just admit defeat like this. I will observe you, understand you, and then, defeat you. In the corridor, that voice that had been lingering in her mind and guiding her to come to Shrek disguised as a boy seemed to become a bit clearer again. That voice said my destiny is here. Could it be that this youth who defeated me is the person I'm looking for? ... Watching the two of them go upstairs one after another, Elder Mew gently shook his cattail leaf fan. A gust of wind blew by, swirling up a few fallen leaves. Elder Mew murmured in his heart. Where the golden tree leaves fly, the sea god's light lives on forever. For the glory of Shrek for generations to come, some means are necessary. Then, he turned over and continued to feign sleep. God realm. There is no night here, the soft halo is like a mother's hand, gently touching the delicate skin of the clouds. The illusory space has an exceptionally moving sense of substance, beautiful beyond the mortal world. Vaguely, deep within the clouds, a majestic palace loomed in and out of sight. A slender figure stood quietly in the clouds, wearing a sea blue robe, with long hair reaching his ankles. He gazed down at the lower realm, and in those eyes that seemed to see through all things in the world, a trace of doubt flashed. This person was precisely the sea god, Tang San. Tang San's brow furrowed slightly as his fingers lightly calculated. The destiny of the child of fortune seems to have undergone a slight change. However, Tang San did not panic, even that furrowed brow soon smoothed out. As the god king who controlled everything, he had absolute confidence. No matter. He stood with his hands behind his back, a smile of being in complete control hanging at the corner of his mouth. Regardless of the process, the result is already destined. Fortunately, I left a backup plan. Presumably, Xiaoqi should have already made contact with that child of fortune. This bond is something you cannot sever. Tang San looked at the churning sea of clouds, as if seeing the future image of Huo Yuhao kneeling before him. This is all for the peace of the continent, for the revival of the Tang sect, and for the stability of the god realm. Child of fortune, I hope you can understand this god king's painstaking efforts. When you have gone through many hardships and finally become my Tang clan's son-in-law, becoming one of my, becoming my right-hand man, you will thank me for everything I have arranged for you today. ... Freshman dormitory building. Huo Yuhao sat cross-legged on the hard wooden bed. His hands formed a strange hand seal, and his breathing was steady and long. Within his body, the upright peace of the mysterious heaven skill and the violent dominance of the chakra were coexisting in a subtle way. Indra chakra. Huo Yuhao tried to investigate it. But he found nothing, except for a burst of coolness in his eyes. There didn't seem to be any earth-shattering changes. It seems it's not energy that directly increases combat power, but a gradual bloodline transformation. No rush, there's plenty of time. Just as he was preparing to settle his mind and enter deep meditation. Creak. The door was cautiously pushed open. A set of hesitant footsteps stopped in front of his bed. Huo Yuhao's brow furrowed slightly as the irritability of his cultivation being forced to interrupt surged in his heart. Wang Dong stood there, but at this moment, her fair, pretty face carried a bit of an unnatural flush. Clearly, for this young master who had been pampered since childhood, bowing her head and admitting a mistake was harder than reaching the heavens. That. Wang Dong hemmed and hawed for a long time before she seemed to make a great resolution, gritting her teeth and saying. Earlier, it was my fault. I shouldn't have set those stupid rules, and I shouldn't have looked down on you. I apologize to you. After saying this, she seemed to have shed a heavy burden and peeked up to observe Huo Yuhao's reaction. Huo Yuhao just gave her a faint glance, said nothing, and closed his eyes again. Boring self-esteem. Seeing that Huo Yuhao didn't react, Wang Dong was a bit embarrassed, but remembering that old sir's words, she still braced herself and continued. Fellow student, since the misunderstanding is resolved, we are after all roommates who will live together in the future. May I ask, what is your name? Huo Yuhao opened his eyes again. This time, his eyes were filled with impatience. Before asking someone else's name, shouldn't you give your own name first? This is basic politeness. Wang Dong choked, and the anger she had suppressed almost flared up again. But thinking of her purpose, she took a deep breath and puffed out her chest. My name is Wang Dong. Huo Yuhao coldly spat out 3 words. Huo Yuhao. After saying that, he resumed his cultivation posture and issued a dismissal. Is there anything else? If not, don't disturb my cultivation. The air instantly froze. Wang Dong looked at this guy who was like a block of ice in disbelief. I've been so humble, and you still have this deadpan face. Growing up in the Clear Sky sect, when was I, this young miss, not the center of attention? Who dared to give me the cold shoulder like this? Fake. He must be faking it. To maintain a cool persona. The pride in Wang Dong's heart was provoked. She didn't believe in this nonsense. Could it be that she didn't have even a bit of attraction? She simply pulled over a chair and sat down across from Huo Yuhao in a carefree manner, forcing a topic. Oh, don't be so cold. Since we've exchanged names, we're friends. Why not chat? For example, what are your hobbies? What is your dream? Or, where did you learn that powerful taijutsu? The veins on Huo Yuhao's temples throbbed slightly. This fly is still buzzing. He suddenly opened his eyes, a flash of tyranny appearing in those Sharingan. He stared fixedly at Wang Dong's incessantly talking mouth, word by word, his voice chillingly cold. You are really annoying. Chapter 11, The Darkness in Tang Ya's Heart, Akatsuki Creation Project. After speaking, Huo Yuhao pushed the door open and left. Bang. The dormitory door closed heartlessly in front of Wang Dong. Wang Dong remained sitting in her chair, her delicate face filled with shock and bewilderment. Since childhood, whether in the Clear Sky sector or anywhere else, she had always been the center of the world by virtue of her appearance that appealed to both men and women, as well as her extraordinary talent. This was the first time someone had looked at her with such a disgusted expression. Damn it. Wang Dong bit her lower lip, an angry fire flickering in her pink blue eyes. How dare he ignore me? How dare he say I'm annoying? Huo Yuhao, you just wait. She angrily grabbed a pillow and threw it hard at the empty bed opposite her. However, as her anger subsided slightly, an inexplicable emotion quietly crept into her heart. Strange, why, looking at his departing back, instead of wanting to stay away, I have an urge to chase after him. Wang Dong covered her chest, feeling her slightly rapid heartbeat, her eyes becoming somewhat dazed. Why, is this? Outside the dormitory building. Huo Yuhao was not strolling leisurely, instead, his pace was extremely fast. Huo Yuhao glanced back at the dormitory building, his eyes cold. Wang Dong. The daughter of God King Tang, who was sliced into 3 parts and placed in the lower realm. On the surface, she was Huo Yuhao's lover in the original work, but in reality, just like Uchiha Madara and Black Zetsu, she was merely a trap in God King Tang's plan for absolute control over this plane. I won't be like Uchiha Madara or Huo Yuhao in the original work. Thinking of this, Huo Yuhao quickened his pace and quickly blended into the crowd heading towards Shrek City. Shrek City was as bustling as ever. Shops lined both sides of the street, and the sounds of peddling rose and fell. Huo Yuhao walked through the crowd, but he was not distracted by the prosperity. His goal was clear, to become stronger. Although my current body has been modified by Hashirama cells, I'm still not satisfied. To carry stronger Sharingan ocular power and to drive the Susanoo that might be unlocked in the future, I must hone my physical body to the limit. Just then, a familiar voice came from ahead and to the side. Hey, little Yuhao. Huo Yuhao stopped in his tracks and looked up. He saw Tang Ya looking at him with a look of surprise. What a coincidence. You should have finished your dormitory assignment by now, right? How is it? Are you getting along with your new roommate? Huo Yuhao curled his lips, the memory of beating up Wang Dong surfacing in his mind, and he flatly spat out 2 words. It's fine. Tang Ya didn't notice his perfunctoriness. She skipped to him and asked curiously, then why aren't you resting in the dorm? Why did you come to the city? To buy some equipment for cultivation. Huo Yuhao was straightforward. Teacher Xiaoya, do you know where I can buy weighted accessories for physical training? Weights. Tang Ya blinked. You want to practice taijutsu? General stores don't have that kind of thing, you have to go to a specialized blacksmith shop to have them custom made. It just so happens that I also need to order a batch of hidden weapons. Come on, I'll take you to a good place. It's a long-term partner of our Tang sect, so we can get a discount. Huo Yuhao nodded. Then I'll have to trouble you, Teacher Xiaoya. The two crossed several streets and arrived at a blacksmith shop on the west side of the city where the sound of clanging was constant. Tang Ya greeted the owner familiarly and then pushed Huo Yuhao to the front. Boss, this kid wants to order a set of weights, wrists, ankles, and a vest. The boss measured Huo Yuhao's size and recorded the information. At this point, Huo Yuhao took out 2 pre-drawn blueprints from his pocket and handed them to the boss. Boss, besides the weights, can you help me mass-produce these 2 items? The boss took the blueprints, and Tang Ya leaned in curiously as well. What was drawn on the blueprints were not the common swords of the Douluo Continent, nor the needle cylinder mechanisms of the Tang sect. The first drawing was a diamond-shaped dart with a circular hole in the center and sharp corners. The second drawing was a uniquely shaped short blade with a ring at the end, seemingly for easy finger spinning. This is, a hint of surprise flashed in Tang Ya's eyes. Also a hidden weapon. These are shuriken and kunai. Huo Yuhao explained calmly, they are throwing weapons I designed myself. With specific techniques, their flight paths can be changed, and they can even collide and ricochet off each other in midair. Shuriken, kunai. Tang Ya looked at the simple yet lethal design, then at the 11-year-old boy in front of her. The surprise in her eyes gradually turned into admiration. Genius. Little Yuhao, you really are a genius. Not only can you create your own spirit ability, but you can also design this brand new kind of hidden weapon. As Tang Ya spoke, her originally excited voice gradually lowered. She looked at Huo Yuhao's youthful yet steady face, and a layer of hard-to-conceal gloom suddenly welled up in the depths of her eyes. Do you know, little Yuhao? Her hands tightly gripped the hem of her clothes, her voice trembling slightly. Sometimes, I really envy your talent. If I were as strong as you, as talented as you, perhaps the Tang sect wouldn't have completely declined in my hands, and my parents wouldn't have. At that moment, the aura emanating from Tang Ya was no longer that of the lively girl she usually was. Instead, it was a deep darkness born of hatred and powerlessness. Huo Yuhao keenly captured this aura. At this moment, the system screen in his mind flickered. Uchiha Obito Tiger Skin Mask. Unlock condition. Lead 2 key characters onto fates completely different from their original ones. Current progress, 0 halves. Looking at Tang Ya's eyes full of pain, Huo Yuhao felt no ripples in his heart, instead, a sense of pleasure from controlling the overall situation arose. What a perfect subject. Craving power, burdened by a blood feud, yet powerless. This is practically a gender-swapped version of Nagato. Huo Yuhao reached out and gently patted Tang Ya's shoulder. His voice became low and magnetic, like a demon's whisper. Teacher Xiaoya. Talent is only one part, effort is more important. As long as you want to, we can take back what the Tang sect has lost in the future. We can even make those who destroyed the Tang sect pay 100-fold. Tang Ya suddenly looked up, staring into Huo Yuhao's deep eyes. Something that had been suppressed for a long time in her heart seemed to be breaking through the soil. She took a deep breath and forced a smile. You're right. With you here, the Tang sect will definitely be revived. Huo Yuhao sneered in his heart. Revived. No, I will lead you to personally destroy that hypocritical Shrek in this decaying world. Just like how Obito guided Nagato. I'll make you and the Tang sect serve me. However, in the future, I will definitely create an Akatsuki organization that belongs only to me. That point will not change. Boss, I want these 2 types. Make 50 of each first. Use the best refined iron. Huo Yuhao turned his head, his tone returning to a flat one. After calculating the price, under Tang Ya's stunned gaze, Huo Yuhao directly pulled a heavy bag of gold coins from his storage ring and slapped it on the counter. Keep the change. Expedite it. Tang Ya's mouth fell open. Little Yuhao, where did you get so much money? She had originally thought that since the kid had just arrived at the academy, he must be short on cash. Having heard him say his cooking was good, she had planned to suggest he sell grilled fish at the school gate to earn some extra pocket money. It turned out he was even more generous than her, the sect leader. Huo Yuhao took back the money bag and gave a faint smile. This is the savings left by my family. To be precise, it's what the Duchess owes me. Seeing Tang Ya's somewhat embarrassed yet envious eyes, Huo Yuhao came up with another plan. Since he wanted to control Tang Ya, in addition to the induction of power, the economic lifeline was also key. Teacher Xiaoya, if you're short on money. Huo Yuhao lowered his voice. Next time we meet, I might have a way to help you earn the first bucket of gold for the revival of the Tang sect. Really? Tang Ya's eyes instantly turned into the shape of gold coins, and the gloom from before vanished. Then it's a deal, no backing out. The next 2 days. Huo Yuhao was like he had vanished from the face of the earth. Except for eating, he spent almost all his time in the dorm or finding a deserted corner for high-intensity physical training. He wore that set of heavy weights at all times, not even taking them off when he slept. As for his roommate, Wang Dong. She had been very depressed these past 2 days. No matter how she tried to strike up a conversation, whether it was through provocation, showing kindness, or even intentionally displaying her knowledge of spirits in front of Huo Yuhao. Huo Yuhao always had only a few reactions. Oh, I'm busy. Don't block the way. The feeling of being completely treated as air made this young master of the Clear Sky clan go crazy, yet she was helpless. Only, she didn't notice that as Huo Yuhao became colder, the time her gaze lingered on him grew longer and longer. Until the day of the opening ceremony arrived. Chapter 12. Zhou Yi, do you want to dance too? In the early morning, Huo Yuhao was wearing weights. The moment he pushed open the door, the second hand of the soul tool clock happened to skip over the last notch. Perfect timing. However, the atmosphere in the classroom was extremely tense. Standing on the podium was an old woman. She had skin like chicken skin and hair like a crane's, her gray hair was coiled atop her head, and her wrinkled face was filled with meanness. She wore a long white robe, her hands were clasped behind her back, and her eyes were fixed on the door. That appearance of hers looked very much like Granny Chio from the Hidden Sand Village in the Naruto world. Just as Huo Yuhao stepped into the classroom, Zhou Yi's cold voice splashed down like a bucket of cold water. Kid, you've got a lot of nerve. Zhou Yi narrowed her eyes. To dare to be late for my first class. Huo Yuhao stopped in his tracks and glanced sideways at the soul tool clock on the wall. The minute hand pointed precisely at the hour, and the second hand had just passed it. Huo Yuhao's voice was calm. The bell just finished ringing as I entered the door. I don't consider this being late. The whole class was silent. Everyone held their breath, unable to believe this freshman dared to talk back. Zhou Yi was stunned for a moment, and then the fire of anger in her eyes grew even more intense. She didn't need a reason, her purpose was to establish her authority. And this last person to enter was the best candidate. I said you're late, so you're late. Zhou Yi slammed the podium and pointed at Huo Yuhao's nose. Shrek doesn't need trash like you. You are expelled. Now, immediately, get out. Trash. These 2 words quickly ignited Huo Yuhao's anger. Huo Yuhao slowly raised his head, his originally calm eyes instantly becoming cold and grim. Trash. That word again. The servants in the Duke's mansion called me that damn butler called me that, and now, even you call me that. Memories of Zhou Yi from the original work surfaced in Huo Yuhao's mind. This old witch was famous in the outer court for her extremely high expulsion rate, priding herself on being a strict teacher who produces brilliant students. But in reality, she was only filtering for those monsters who were already naturally gifted to pad her own graduation rate statistics. As for the futures of those students ruined by her unreasonable expulsions, she didn't care at all. The reason she dared to be so arrogant and even ignore the academy's rules was simply because she had an 8th-level soul engineer husband standing behind her, Fan Yu. A typical case of a fox borrowing the tiger's majesty. Seeing Huo Yuhao standing still, the disgust in Zhou Yi's eyes intensified, and she shouted sharply. Are you deaf? Get out now. In his seat. Wang Dong clenched her fists anxiously. If he gets expelled, she was just about to stand up and plead for Huo Yuhao. However, a scene that exceeded everyone's expectations occurred. Huo Yuhao did not retreat or beg for mercy, instead, he stepped forward, walking toward the podium step by step. His eyes instantly underwent a mutation. The left eye was a single tomo. The right eye was a triple tomo. Sharingan, open. I do not recognize a teacher like you. Want to expel me? You're not worthy. Whoosh. The whole class erupted in an uproar. This is too arrogant. He actually dares to confront the homeroom teacher face to face. Zhou Yi laughed out of extreme anger, her old face twisting with rage. Good, very good. It's been many years since a student dared to challenge my authority like this. Boom. A terrifying wave of spirit power suddenly erupted from Zhou Yi's body. That was the pressure belonging to a spirit emperor powerhouse, sweeping through the entire classroom like a physical tide. Every student present felt their breathing become difficult, and a few timid girls were already pale with fright. Spirit rings rose one by one from beneath Zhou Yi's feet. 2 yellow, 2 purple, 2 black. A 6-ring spirit emperor with the optimal configuration. A massive phantom of a red fire dragon appeared behind her, emitting scorching heat. Kid, do you see? This is power. This is qualification, Zhou Yi said proudly. However, Huo Yuhao, who was at the center of the pressure, didn't even bend his back. His clothes moved even without wind, and his Sharingan eyes appeared even more eerie under the glow of the red dragon's fire. A six-ring spirit emperor. Feeling the heat wave hitting his face, Huo Yuhao's lips curled into a cold smile of extreme disdain. Is that it? This level doesn't even compare to that duchess I sent to hell. Is this all you've got? Huo Yuhao spoke calmly, his voice wasn't loud, but it clearly reached everyone's ears. I thought the so-called demon teacher would be strong, but it turns out, she's just mediocre. What did you say? Zhou Yi acted as if she had heard the biggest joke in the world. I said, you are too weak. Presumptuous. Zhou Yi was completely enraged. Kid, I will make you understand the most basic principle, revere the strong. Zhou Yi took a deep breath and suppressed a portion of her spirit power. You are just a one-ring soul master, you have no right to shout in front of me. Don't say I'm bullying you. I'll suppress my cultivation to the third ring. As long as you can take 3 of my moves, I'll take back what I just said and give you a chance to stay in the academy. At this point, she stared at Huo Yuhao with a sinister gaze. Now, will you get out yourself, or should I beat you out? Looking at Zhou Yi's face that said, giving you a chance is a blessing, Huo Yuhao felt a wave of disgust in his heart. Charity. I don't need charity. Neither. Huo Yuhao rolled his wrists, making a series of cracking sounds. Because, I will be the one beating you out. Arrogant. You will regret provoking me. Zhou Yi roared, wasting no more words. First spirit ability, Red Dragon's Claw. She thrust her right hand forward, her originally withered palm was instantly covered in red dragon scales, transforming into a dragon claw burning with fierce flames, heading straight for Huo Yuhao's shoulder with a whistle that tore through the air. Although she had suppressed her spirit power, her physical fitness and combat experience as a spirit emperor were still there, her speed was as fast as lightning. Just as everyone thought Huo Yuhao would be sent flying with one slap. Huo Yuhao moved. Under the dynamic vision of the Sharingan, Zhou Yi's lightning-fast movements were broken down into countless slow-motion frames. Left shoulder sinking, center of gravity shifting forward, elbow turning outward. The opening was too obvious. Huo Yuhao's footsteps shifted slightly, and his body slid to the side at an extremely strange angle. Swish. The burning dragon claw brushed past the tip of his nose, the flames even singeing a lock of hair on his forehead. But at the moment they crossed paths, Huo Yuhao's hands shot out like spirit snakes. His left hand stuck to Zhou Yi's wrist, redirecting the force, his right hand transformed into a palm blade, cutting toward her elbow joint. Borrowing force to strike. Zhou Yi only felt a strange force transmit through her, and her attack actually deviated from its direction, causing her to stagger forward involuntarily for 2 steps. What? Zhou Yi's face paled in shock. How could this kid's reaction speed and strength be something a one-ring soul master should have? Kid, you have some skill. Zhou Yi steadied herself, her expression becoming even more unsightly. But if this is all you have, it's still not enough. Is that so? Huo Yuhao stopped his movements and stood 3 meters away from Zhou Yi. He sighed softly, looking somewhat helpless. Carrying these things indeed makes it a bit hard to move freely. After saying that, under the confused gazes of all his classmates, he reached out and unbuttoned his coat. Then, he removed the bracers on his wrists, the leggings on his ankles, and that vest that looked very thick. That was just a warm-up. Huo Yuhao casually threw these things onto the ground. Clang. Boom. That was not the sound of clothes hitting the floor. That was the loud crash of heavy metal striking the ground. The hard stone floor of the classroom was actually smashed with several fine cracks the moment those weights landed. Dust rose everywhere. The entire classroom seemed to tremble for a moment. Dead silence. Everyone's eyes widened as they looked at the lead blocks embedded in the stone floor, then back at Huo Yuhao, who was stretching his neck. Wang Dong's mouth hung open, her facial expression completely out of control. You're kidding, right? Under such weight, he almost knocked down Teacher Zhou, who is a spirit emperor. How is this possible? Is he even human? Huo Yuhao cracked his neck, feeling his body so light he could almost fly. He hooked his finger at the dumbfounded Zhou Yi, the red light in his eyes flaring up as a fanatical smile appeared on his face. Alright, warm-up's over. Chapter 13, Yan Xiaojie, enough, Zhou Yi, I am the dean. Playing house ends here. Before the words even finished, his figure had already vanished. Bang. A shockwave of air exploded across the ground. Freed from the burden of hundreds of pounds, Huo Yuhao's speed was startlingly fast. Zhou Yi only felt a blur before her eyes as a fist approached her face. So fast. She subconsciously raised her arm to block. Bang, bang, bang. The two instantly clashed in a flurry of combat. Huo Yuhao was utilizing Uchiha-style taijutsu, every strike was ruthless, aiming directly for vital points. Elbow strikes, knee thrusts, spinning kicks, every movement flowed like water, devoid of any redundant flair. With the enhancement of the Hashirama cells, his physical strength had already reached the level of a spirit elder. Zhou Yi grew increasingly alarmed as the fight progressed. How is this possible? This kid's strength and endurance have actually reached the level of a spirit elder. And this combat technique, it's tricky, precise, and anticipates all my movements. This isn't something an 11-year-old child should possess. Even though she was suppressing her cultivation, she still possessed the physical constitution and combat experience of a spirit emperor. Yet now, in close quarters combat, she was actually being suppressed. In the split second she was dazed, Huo Yuhao delivered a sharp whip kick heavily against her, shocking her back 3 steps. Whoosh. The students in the class gasped collectively. Zhou Yi was pushed back. Zhou Yi steadied herself, her face turning the color of pig liver. To be pushed back by a first-ring brat in front of so many new students, where would she hide her face? No. If this continues, my attempt to establish authority will be a total failure. How would I lead this class? Shame and fury clouded her mind, and the rationality in Zhou Yi's eyes instantly collapsed. Brat, stay down for me. Boom. A terrifying aura suddenly erupted. She no longer suppressed her cultivation, and the spirit power belonging to a 6-ring spirit emperor poured out without reservation. 2 yellow, 2 purple, 2 black, 6 spirit rings shone brilliantly. She broke her promise and used her full power. Feeling that overwhelming pressure, Huo Yuhao did not panic. Instead, he showed a mocking sneer. Anxious already? For the sake of that pathetic dignity, you've even thrown away your shame. The full power of a spirit emperor. It doesn't matter. There are already 2 spirit emperors who died by my hand at the Duke's mansion. Huo Yuhao did not retreat. He took a deep breath, his consciousness sinking into the sea of consciousness. There, the ghetto statue sat quietly. Let me borrow your power, Ikebe Tianmeng. Hum. A surge of pale blue energy erupted from within Huo Yuhao's body. It was special energy converted by the ghetto statue from the heavenly dream ice worm's million-year mental origin. Pale blue flames instantly covered his entire body, forming an incomplete, somewhat illusory energy cloak. The tailed beast cloak is still incomplete. But it's enough to deal with you. With the boost from this power, Huo Yuhao's mental force instantly skyrocketed, breaking through the bottleneck and reaching the level of a high-tier spirit emperor. His eyes glowed with intense red light. The 3 tomo spun wildly. The first ring lit up. Spiritual detection, spirit sharing, mental interference, soul shock. Huo Yuhao did not use these 4 basic skills. Based on the principles of mental interference, and combined with the ocular power of the Sharingan, he had deduced a combat art unique to the Uchiha. Huo Yuhao looked directly at the charging Zhou Yi. Genjutsu, demonic illusion, hell viewing technique. Zhou Yi only felt as if the tomo in Huo Yuhao's eyes had turned into 2 bottomless whirlpools, instantly sucking her soul inside. In the real world, everything remained normal. But in Zhou Yi's perception, she had already rushed in front of Huo Yuhao. Red Dragon's Rage. She struck out with a palm, her violent spirit power directly shattering Huo Yuhao's defense. Ah. Huo Yuhao let out a muffled groan as he was pinned heavily to the ground by her, unable to move. Zhou Yi looked down at the subdued Huo Yuhao, the malice in her heart finally finding release. Brat, do you understand now? She grinned savagely, in the face of absolute strength, your arrogance is worthless. Now get lost. However, the Huo Yuhao she had pinned firmly to the ground showed no fear, instead, he wore a strange smile. He struggled to extend his right hand, his finger slowly pointing toward the teacher's podium. Confused, Zhou Yi subconsciously followed his finger with her gaze. With that look, her entire body went cold. There, on the podium, sat a person. It was Huo Yuhao. He had his legs crossed, one hand propping up his chin, sitting languidly on the desk. That domineering posture made it seem as if he weren't sitting on a podium, but on a throne overlooking all living beings. Zhou Yi whipped her head back. She discovered with horror, how could the thing pinned under her hand be Huo Yuhao? It was clearly an innocent classroom desk. By now, the desk had been smashed to pieces by her spirit power. What happened? Was I just going crazy against a table this whole time? A mental type spirit ability. Illusion. Before she could react, the Huo Yuhao on the podium spoke slowly. His voice wasn't loud, yet it carried a contempt and pride that pierced to the bone. Do you also wish to dance? Boom. This sentence completely shattered the last of Zhou Yi's sanity. Humiliation. This was blatant humiliation. She, a dignified spirit emperor, was toyed with like a monkey by a new student using illusions. Brat, how dare you toy with me? Zhou Yi let out a hysterical scream. She had gone completely mad. The phantom of a red dragon behind her roared to the sky, and her 4th spirit ring suddenly lit up. Die for me. She transformed into a burning meteor, carrying a world-destroying momentum as she charged recklessly toward Huo Yuhao on the podium. With this strike, she truly intended to kill. The students in the class screamed in terror. Huo Yuhao remained seated there, his posture not changing even an inch, his Sharingan coldly watching the suicidal charge of Zhou Yi. At the very instant that fatal attack was about to land. A soft yet indestructible barrier of white light appeared out of thin air in front of the podium. Bang. Zhou Yi's full power strike hit the barrier like an egg hitting a rock, instantly dissipating. The massive recoil sent her flying backward, landing miserably on the ground. A middle-aged man dressed in a white robe appeared at the classroom door at some unknown moment. His expression was refined, but currently covered in frost. It was none other than the dean of Shrek Academy's martial soul department, Yan Xiaojie. Zhou Yi. Yan Xiaojie's voice was low, yet it contained a suffocating rage. You, a spirit emperor, actually used your full power against a new student. You've truly regressed with age. Zhou Yi scrambled up from the ground, her hair disheveled, looking like a madwoman. She pointed at Huo Yuhao, her eyes bloodshot as she roared. Dean, this brat has no respect for his elders. He violated school rules. He even publicly provoked a teacher. I am purging the ranks for the academy. This kind of black sheep must die. Purging the ranks. Yan Xiaojie was so angry he laughed. He had received a report from Du Weilan in his office about a once-in-a-century genius who could control 5 elements and possess twin spirits. He had rushed over immediately. In Yan Xiaojie's heart, Huo Yuhao's potential with ultimate attributes was the only hope for suppressing his beloved disciple Ma Xiaotao's evil fire. That was a treasure more precious than 10 Zhou Yi's. And the moment he arrived at the door, he saw Zhou Yi trying to commit murder. Enough, Zhou Yi, I am the dean. Yan Xiaojie took a step forward, his powerful aura instantly pinning Zhou Yi in place. The academy is already aware of Huo Yuhao's talent. He is a key target for cultivation by the academy. As for you, as a teacher, you are narrow-minded and tyrannical. Yan Xiaojie waved his hand and said coldly. You are to leave the classroom immediately and return for suspension and reflection. Without my order, you are not permitted to set foot in the teaching building. Zhou Yi looked at Yan Xiaojie in disbelief. Suspension. Suspending me for the sake of one student. She gritted her teeth, though unwilling, she knew now was not the time for a direct confrontation. In any case, Fan Yu was there. As long as Fan Yu made a scene, the academy would have to beg her to return. Fine, very well. Zhou Yi gave Huo Yuhao a vicious glare, then slammed the door as she left. Dean, you will regret this. Following that resounding slam of the door, silence returned to the classroom. Everyone looked at each other, their minds still unable to process what had happened. It's over. That first-ring freshman not only suppressed Teacher Joe in physical combat but also used illusions to make her go crazy against a desk, and finally even forced the dean to personally intervene to protect him and drive Teacher Joe away. Wang Dong looked at the youth on the podium who was slowly deactivating his Sharingan with a calm expression, her heart churning with waves of shock. How did he do it? Yan Xiaojie turned around, the frost on his face instantly melting away, replaced by a kind and amiable smile. He looked at Huo Yuhao, his eyes filled with admiration and the joy of seeing a useful tool. Students, you've been startled. Teacher Zhou Yi has been temporarily removed from her post due to inappropriate teaching methods. The academy will immediately arrange a new homeroom teacher for you. Until then, please study on your own. After speaking, he walked up to Huo Yuhao, patted his shoulder gently, and whispered. Yuhao, come with me to the office for a moment. Huo Yuhao nodded and jumped down from the podium. He straightened his collar and, under the awe-filled gazes of the entire class, followed Yan Xiaojie out of the classroom. Chapter 14. You want me to play love games with her? As Huo Yuhao followed Yan Xiaojie out of the classroom, the previously silent class 1 of the new students instantly erupted into a frenzy. Does he really only have a first ring? How could someone with a first ring beat Teacher Zhou, a spirit emperor, like that? Is this what a true genius looks like? In a corner, a petite girl with short hair rested her chin on her hand, her eyes fixed dreamily on the classroom door. The scene on the podium just now, the boy sitting lazily on his throne, with his legs crossed, asking contemptuously, do you also want to dance? That image was deeply etched into Xiao Xiao's mind. Coupled with the subtle influence of the Indra chakra, Huo Yuhao's original features had become more defined, exuding a wicked and dangerous handsomeness. So handsome, that domineering aura of, I alone am supreme, is so much stronger than those pretty boys who only know how to act cool. HMPH. A discordant cold snort interrupted Xiao Xiao's daydreaming. Sitting in the front row, Wang Dong felt a strange surge of bitterness as she heard the praise for Huo Yuhao surrounding her. It felt as if a toy that originally belonged only to her was suddenly being coveted by everyone. That guy, Huo Yuhao, he wears a deadpan expression every day and ignores everyone. What's so good about him? Although she cursed him in her heart, Wang Dong's mind uncontrollably replayed the image of Huo Yuhao's back. Top floor, Dean's office. Yan Xiaojie withdrew his hand from Huo Yuhao's shoulder, a flash of irrepressible surprise in his eyes. Truly extraordinary. Although his spirit power isn't strong yet, these 5 elemental attributes, fire, water, wind, earth, and lightning, each contain extremely vigorous vitality. Yan Xiaojie calculated silently in his heart. If cultivated carefully to guide the evolution of his water attribute, he might actually reach the level of ultimate ice. In that case, Xiao Tao's evil fire would be saved. Thinking of his beloved disciple Ma Xiao Tao, who gave him such a headache, Yan Xiaojie's gaze toward Huo Yuhao became increasingly kind, as if he were looking at a life-saving immortal pill. Yuhao. Yan Xiaojie sat back behind his desk, took an exquisite jade bottle from a drawer, and pushed it toward Huo Yuhao. Accept this medicinal pill, consider it an apology from the academy. Huo Yuhao glanced at the jade bottle. An apology. Giving gifts for no reason, there must be an ulterior motive. This pill is called the Profound Ice Pill. Yan Xiaojie watched Huo Yuhao's expression and continued to cast the bait. It is extremely precious and can significantly purify the spirit power of water or ice attribute spirit masters, aiding their cultivation. Furthermore, given your talent, I've decided to pre-select you as a core disciple of the Martial Soul Department. It will be officially announced once the new student assessment is over. At this, Yan Xiaojie paused, his tone becoming solemn. Yuhao, if you can cultivate your water attribute to the realm of ultimate ice in the future, I am willing to make an exception and take you as my personal disciple. Huo Yuhao took the jade bottle and rubbed its jade surface. So that's it. The Profound Ice Pill, Ultimate Ice, Personal Disciple. After this combination of moves, the purpose was already clear. It's for Ma Xiao Tao. Familiar with the plot, he instantly saw through Yan Xiaojie's intentions. Ma Xiao Tao, the woman with the evil fire phoenix spirit. Dominated by evil fire, her mind unclear, liable to go on a rampage and hurt people at any time. Images of Jinchuriki struggling in pain due to the rampaging power of tailed beasts in the Naruto world flashed through Huo Yuhao's mind. She was somewhat similar to those failed Jinchuriki who couldn't control their tailed beast chakra. If there's an opportunity in the future, I can try to guide that crazy woman. A pawn with top-tier combat power but an unstable mind was exactly what the Akatsuki organization needed. Huo Yuhao looked up, a look of being overwhelmed by favor appearing on his face. Thank you for your cultivation, Dean. Yuhao will surely cultivate hard and not fail your high expectations. After Zhou Yi's farce ended, class 1 of the new students welcomed a new homeroom teacher, Wang Yan. Compared to Zhou Yi's tyranny, Wang Yan was gentle, elegant, and knowledgeable. The teaching atmosphere instantly transformed from hell to heaven. During this week, Huo Yuhao became the absolute focal point of the class. Not only did the boys revere his strength, but many girls also cast flirtatious glances at him. There were always people trying to strike up a conversation. But Huo Yuhao's reaction was always the same. Indifference, ignoring them, or a gaze that made one feel as if they had fallen into an ice cellar. Soon, the grouping for the new student assessment began. Unsurprisingly, under Wang Yan's arrangement, Huo Yuhao, Wang Dong, and Xiao Xiao were grouped together. Hello, Huo Yuhao. As soon as the groups were formed, Xiao Xiao couldn't wait to approach him. She had specially arranged her hair today, a sweet smile on her face as she looked at Huo Yuhao somewhat shyly. I've admired you for a long time, the way you taught Teacher Zhou a lesson that day was so cool. My name is Xiao Xiao, and my spirit is the 3 lives soul suppressing cauldron. Please take care of me from now on. Wang Dong stood to the side with her arms crossed, turning her head away, but her ears were pricked up high. Hearing the voice, Huo Yuhao only glanced at her sideways, his eyes showing no fluctuation at all. I don't have time to remember the names of ants. After saying that, he turned and left, without bestowing even a second of pause. The smile on Xiao Xiao's face instantly froze. An ant. I'm a genius with twin spirits. He actually called me an ant. And said he didn't have time to remember my name. You. Xiao Xiao stomped her feet in anger, her eyes instantly turning red. Huo Yuhao, you're far too arrogant. Night, dormitory. Huo Yuhao sat cross-legged on the bed, performing the fusion cultivation of chakra and spirit power. Wang Dong lay opposite him, tossing and turning, unable to sleep. The scene of Xiao Xiao being rebuffed during the day, while making her feel secretly pleased, also gave her a new understanding of Huo Yuhao. Hey, Huo Yuhao. Wang Dong couldn't help but break the silence. Xiao Xiao took the initiative to greet you today, why did you speak like that? She's a beauty, after all, and she even said she likes you. Why are you like a block of wood, with no reaction at all? As she spoke, an undetectable hint of sourness entered her tone. Huo Yuhao slowly opened his eyes, the red tomo flickering once in the darkness. Like, talking about love in this world where the strong prey on the weak. My goal is to become the Ten-Tails Jinchuriki, kill that man, and create a world with my mother. I don't have time to play house with you all. How boring. Huo Yuhao's voice was flat. Do you want me to play love games with her? It's a waste of time. Wang Dong choked, sat up, and stared at Huo Yuhao's cold profile, asking on a whim. Then, don't you have anyone you like? Or rather, don't you yearn for beautiful things? Huo Yuhao was silent for a moment. He stood up, walked to the window, and looked at the pitch-black night sky outside. The moonlight spilled over him, casting a long, lonely shadow behind him. At that moment, his back seemed to overlap with that of Uchiha Madara, who stood at the peak of the ninja world, looking down upon all living beings. Huo Yuhao didn't look back, his voice low and raspy, carrying a desolation and arrogance that had seen through the essence of the world. In this cruel reality, weakness is the original sin. Weakness is ugliness. He reached out his hand as if to grasp the moon in his palm. Only power is the sole magnificent view in this world. Wang Dong stared blankly at his back, opening her mouth, only to find she couldn't say a word. That suffocating loftiness and obsession with power made her heart skip a beat. Yet, she was also inexplicably fascinated. Chapter 15. Similarities between the Tang sect and the Uzumaki clan. Inside the dormitory, Huo Yuhao slowly exhaled a breath of cold air. The mysterious ice pill truly lived up to its reputation. Huo Yuhao clenched his fists, feeling the surging spirit power within his body. Under the catalytic effect of the mysterious ice pill's medicinal power, his spirit power rank broke through 2 levels in succession, reaching rank 18 directly. He was now only 1 step away from becoming a 2-ring Great Soul Master. What surprised him even more were the changes in his body. As his water attribute spirit power was purified, the Hashirama cells dormant in his body seemed to receive nourishment, further increasing their activity. His meridians became wider and tougher, and his 5 senses grew increasingly sharp. Not only that. Huo Yuhao raised his hand, and a sphere of water condensed at his fingertips. My understanding of the nature transformation of water attribute chakra has deepened. Huo Yuhao nodded with satisfaction and dispersed the water sphere in his hand. It had been a week. The ninja tools at the blacksmith shop should be finished by now. Moreover, it was time for his scheduled meeting with Tang Ya. Huo Yuhao changed into casual clothes and left the dormitory alone. Shrek City, South Gate. Although Huo Yuhao was slightly delayed by his cultivation, when he reached the city gate, a pink silhouette was already there waiting. Tang Ya was wearing a pale pink long dress today, looking exceptionally youthful and lively. Seeing Huo Yuhao approach, her eyes instantly lit up. Little Yuhao, over here. Tang Ya waved her hand and ran over to him in a few steps, sizing him up. Tisk tisk tisk, I haven't seen you in a week, and I didn't expect you to become such a celebrity in the outer courtyard. Tang Ya's tone carried a hint of teasing and a touch of disbelief. I heard you actually defeated that perverted old hag Zhou Yi head on. She's a spirit emperor. Are you really just a 1-ring soul master? This matter had already spread like wildfire throughout the academy. Although the academy's higher-ups had suppressed the specific details, the fact that a new student stood up to his homeroom teacher, leading to Zhou Yi's suspension, had still become a topic of conversation for everyone. Huo Yuhao's expression remained calm, showing no sign of pride despite the praise. It was just luck. He said indifferently, she underestimated her opponent, and her judgment was interfered with by my mental attribute spirit ability. HMPH, fine, keep your secrets if you want. Tang Ya curled her lips, obviously not believing this perfunctory excuse. However, she didn't press him, after all, everyone has their secrets. Let's go to the blacksmith shop first. The owner notified me yesterday that your items are ready. Inside the blacksmith shop. The owner carefully brought out 2 heavy wooden boxes. Young brother Huo, everything you wanted is here. 50 shuriken and 50 kunai. All forged from the finest 100 refined iron, exactly according to your blueprints, without a single discrepancy. Huo Yuhao opened the boxes. The cold light gleamed. He casually picked up a kunai and spun it twice around his finger with agility. Very good. Huo Yuhao waved his hand. Without seeing him make any discernible movement, the 2 large wooden boxes instantly vanished. Tang Ya, who had been standing beside him, suddenly narrowed her eyes. That was a storage spirit tool. And judging by the speed of storage, it definitely wasn't some common item. It was at least a rank 5, no, a top-tier storage spirit tool of rank 6 or higher. A wave of shock rose in Tang Ya's heart. Huo Yuhao said he was an orphan and that his family had perished, but how could a destitute orphan carry such a priceless treasure with him? What exactly was the background of his 5 spirits family? Huo Yuhao seemed not to notice Tang Ya's reaction, or rather, this was exactly what he intended to show her. Leaving the blacksmith shop, the 2 strolled down the street. Tang Ya finally couldn't help but speak up. Little Yuhao, that storage ring you just used, it seems to be of a very high level. Huo Yuhao's footsteps paused slightly. He glanced at Tang Ya, the corner of his mouth curving into an imperceptible arc. She took the bait. He lowered his head, stroking the ring on his finger, a trace of nostalgia and sadness appearing in his eyes. Yes, this is the last bit of inheritance my family left me. Speaking of which. Huo Yuhao looked up at Tang Ya, his voice echoing with a faint quality. My family is actually somewhat similar to your Tang sect. Tang Ya was stunned. Similar. In what way? Huo Yuhao did not answer directly but looked into the distance and began to tell an ancient story. A long time ago, my family was known as the Uzumaki clan. We excelled in sealing techniques and possessed immense vitality. We were once a great hidden clan. We had an ally for generations called the Konoha sect. The relationship between our two clans was excellent. Even the emblem of the Konoha sect was printed with our clan's crest as a sign of friendship. We taught them our clan's secret techniques without reservation. At this point, Huo Yuhao's voice turned cold. However, when my clan was besieged by other forces because our sealing techniques were too powerful, facing the threat of extermination, that ally we were so close to, the Konoha sect, chose to stand by and watch. They stood on high ground, watching our clansmen being slaughtered and our village being burnt to ashes with their own eyes. Perhaps it was because they feared our power, or perhaps, they just wanted to wait until we were all dead so they could monopolize those inheritances. Huo Yuhao turned his head and looked at Tang Ya, who was already engrossed in the story, and asked softly. Teacher Xiao Ya, tell me, isn't such an ally laughable? Tang Ya's face turned somewhat pale. She clenched her fists tightly, her eyes filled with righteous indignation. That's too shameless. They're practically not human. They received so many favors, yet they refused to help in a moment of crisis. Such a sect is simply too hypocritical. Huo Yuhao looked at the agitated Tang Ya and sneered in his heart. Well said. Unfortunately, the Konoha sect you are cursing has a more resounding name in this world, Shrek. He reached out and gently patted Tang Ya's shoulder. It's all in the past. Only the weak will always be trapped in the hatred of the past, complaining about the unfairness of fate. But the strong. A red light flashed briefly in Huo Yuhao's eyes, and his voice was firm and powerful. Will create their own future. They will take back what was lost, 1,000 times, 10,000 times over. Tang Ya's whole body trembled. Looking at the boy before her, who was several years younger than herself, a wave of inexplicable admiration rose in her heart. He was right, the strong create the future, but at the same time, Huo Yuhao's story just now was like a thorny seed, planted deep within her heart. Allies for generations, standing by and doing nothing, two names involuntarily surfaced in Tang Ya's mind. Tang Sect. Shrek Academy. The first sect leader of the Tang Sect, Ancestor Tang San, was also the sole figure of the Shrek Seven Devils. The Tang Sect had played an indispensable role in Shrek Academy's current status. There were even statues of the Tang Sect ancestors everywhere in Shrek City. But, why, when the Tang Sect was gradually declining, even having its foundation stolen and facing the crisis of extermination, did Shrek, the #1 academy on the continent that clearly had the ability to lend a helping hand, choose to remain silent? They just watched the Tang Sect fall and watched us become displaced. What difference was there between this and the Konoha sect, in Huo Yuhao's story? Once the seed of doubt is planted, it will take root and sprout wildly in the depths of the heart. Tang Ya lowered her head, looking at the road beneath her feet, her expression becoming complex. Huo Yuhao walked ahead without looking back. But he knew that the plan of the tiger skin mask had already taken its first step. Doubt, be angry. When you are completely despondent with this hypocritical world, that is when I shall put on that mask. Chapter 16, Spirit Beast Cloak, Soul Beast Bomb, Battling Ma Xiao Tao. After listening to Huo Yuhao's story about the Uzumaki clan and Konoha sect, Tang Ya remained in a daze until she returned to her dormitory. She sat by the bed, looking at the statues of the original Shrek 7 devils standing in the square, a sense of confusion appearing in her eyes for the first time. Konoha sect, Shrek, why are they so similar? Once, she was full of gratitude and respect for Shrek Academy, believing it was the holy land for the continent's spirit masters and the incarnation of justice. But now, that story had shattered that glamorous filter. The Iron Blood sect, an inconspicuous little sect, actually dared to openly exterminate the entire Tang sect. That was a disaster of total extermination. Shrek clearly only needed to lift a finger to crush the Iron Blood sect and save the Tang sect. Yet, they did nothing. Bebe told me the Academy's rule is, help the urgent, not the poor, because the Tang sect's decline was due to its own reasons, making it inconvenient for the Academy to interfere. But, is having one's entire family killed not considered urgent? If a so-called ally only adds flowers to the brocade when you are glorious but stands by with folded arms when you are in trouble, then such an ally is simply laughable. The seeds of doubt had already taken root in her heart. Tang Ya bit her lip, a flash of determination in her eyes. No, the next time I see Bebe, I must ask him personally. Why did Shrek stand by and do nothing back then? ... After parting with Tang Ya, Huo Yuhao did not return to the dormitory to rest. He went alone to the Sea God Lake shore. The night was deep, and the lake surface shimmered. Huo Yuhao did not sit in meditation on the shore, instead, he walked straight onto the lake surface. 1 step, 2 steps. A magical scene occurred. His feet did not sink into the water but stepped steadily on the surface, creating ripples of fine waves. This was a basic training from the Naruto world, water walking. By precisely attaching chakra to the soles of the feet, a delicate balance is maintained. This week's weight training, combined with water walking and tree climbing, has raised my control over the energy in my body to a new level. Carrying several hundred caddies of special weights, Huo Yuhao walked on the lake as if it were level ground. As he walked, he attempted to mobilize the power within his sea of consciousness. The ghetto statue devoured the heavenly dream ice worm, as its Jinchuriki, I can naturally borrow that power. Buzz. A faint blue halo began to emerge on his body's surface, a manifestation of the heavenly dream ice worm's spiritual origin and ice attribute power. This is, the prototype of a tailed beast cloak, or rather, a spirit beast cloak. Huo Yuhao felt the boost brought by that power and was preparing for the next step of testing. Suddenly, a scorching wave of air swept from the direction of the island in the center of the lake, instantly evaporating the surrounding water vapor and making the originally cool night air stiflingly hot. Huo Yuhao looked up abruptly, his Sharingan instantly activating. In his dynamic vision, a red dot of light was enlarging at an alarming speed. It was a human figure. She was wrapped in crimson flames, like an out-of-control meteor, rushing forward with a world-destroying aura. Wherever she passed, the lake water boiled. Evil Fire Phoenix, Ma Xiaotao. With just one look, Huo Yuhao recognized the newcomer. The crazy woman who almost roasted Huo Yuhao in the original story. Are the higher-ups in the Academy's Sea God Pavilion out of their minds? Huo Yuhao frowned, a flash of disgust in his eyes. Knowing she has an evil fire defect and could go berserk at any time, they still allow this time bomb to run around. This is the so-called Shrek. They can't even control a single student. In the blink of an eye, Ma Xiaotao had rushed close. She was currently unconscious, her eyes blood red, leaving only the most primitive desire for destruction. That was a terrifying pressure comparable to the Spirit Saint level. If it were an ordinary one-ring soul master, they would probably have been scared witless by now. But standing on the water, Huo Yuhao not only didn't retreat but instead took a combat stance. Spirit Saint. Just right, I'll use you to test this move. With a thought, the eye representing the ITB on the ghetto statue in his sea of consciousness suddenly lit up. Spirit Beast Cloak, open. Boom. This time, it was no longer the illusory thin layer from when he dealt with Zhou Yi. A majestic surge of pale blue energy erupted from his body like a volcanic eruption, instantly enveloping his entire body. This was the complete Spirit Beast Cloak. With the augmentation of this power, Huo Yuhao's aura instantly surged. His mental force directly broke through the bottleneck, reaching the level of a high-tier Spirit Emperor. And his spirit power fluctuations were forcibly raised to the Spirit King level. Although it was borrowed power, it was enough for him to have the qualifications to dialogue with the strong. Facing the oncoming evil fire, Huo Yuhao slowly extended his right hand. Countless pale blue light dots gathered frantically in his palm. Under the influence of the heavenly dream ice worm's attribute, this energy sphere appeared as a crystal clear ice blue, surrounded by a biting cold mist. Since it's the Spirit Beast Cloak, then this move shall be called. Huo Yuhao's eyes were cold as he looked at the crazed face close at hand. Soul Beast Bomb. Buzz. A deep blue energy sphere the size of a fist, yet containing a destructive aura, instantly formed in his palm. The terrifyingly low temperature instantly froze the lake surface beneath his feet. Go. Huo Yuhao pushed out with one hand, and the Soul Beast Bomb, with a piercing screech, met Ma Xiaotao's evil fire impact head-on. On one side was the evil fire approaching ultimate fire. On the other side was the Soul Beast Bomb compressed to ultimate ice. The two forces collided violently above Sea God Lake. Bang. There was no stalemate as one might have imagined. Although Ma Xiaotao's rank was high, she was currently unconscious, merely venting pure energy. Meanwhile, as a Jinchuriki, Huo Yuhao possessed nearly endless endurance converted by the ghetto statue. Coupled with the high-density energy structure of the Soul Beast Bomb, it instantly gained the upper hand in quality. Ice and fire tore at each other frantically. Finally, a world-shaking explosion rang out. Rumble. A massive shockwave kicked up waves several meters high, blasting the lake water into a sky full of rain. Ah. Ma Xiaotao let out a cry of pain as she was sent flying by the Soul Beast Bomb's explosion, the evil fire on her body instantly scattered and extinguished as if it had met its nemesis. Like a kite with a broken string, she fell heavily into the distant lake water, splashing up a large amount of water. Huff, huff. Huo Yuhao stood on a piece of floating ice, panting heavily. His right hand trembled slightly, a backlash from the high-intensity energy output. Not bad power. This one Soul Beast Bomb actually managed to shatter the defense of a Spirit Emperor-level powerhouse. However, before he could calm his breathing. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Several extremely powerful auras streaked over at high speed from the direction of Sea God Island. It was the elders of Shrek Academy, alerted by the commotion here. The old guys are coming. Huo Yuhao's expression changed. I can't be discovered. Watching the streaks of light getting closer, Huo Yuhao no longer hesitated. He suddenly covered his right eye, desperately activating the Mangekyo Sharingan that he had only recently awakened and not yet fully mastered. Kamui. In Huo Yuhao's right eye, the three tomo spun frantically, finally connecting instantly to form three black sickle patterns linked end to end. Space began to warp. A vortex-shaped black void rapidly formed with his right eye as the center. Huo Yuhao's figure quickly twisted and elongated within the vortex, finally disappearing completely above Sea God Lake with a ripple of spatial energy. Leaving behind only a messy lake surface and the unconscious Ma Xiaotao. Chapter 17 Shu Sanshi, is the ghost lantern still sinister? Kamui Dimension. This was a silent world belonging solely to Huo Yuhao. In this world, the sky was an oppressive bluish black, and deep blue rectangular pillars stood tall all around, extending to the very end of his vision. Aside from these cold geometric shapes, the only other thing in this space was that crystal coffin. Huo Yuhao sat cross-legged beside the coffin, the spirit beast cloak stayed long since deactivated. He formed hand signs, refining the chakra within his body while circulating the mysterious heaven skill to breathe in spirit power. Level 18. Huo Yuhao slowly opened his eyes, feeling the energy within him that, while full, was still visibly thin. At this stage, I am merely a one-ring soul master. Whether it is the tailed beast cloak or the white Zetsu possession, both place a massive burden on the body and cannot be maintained for long. I must increase my strength as quickly as possible. Just then, deep within the sea of consciousness, that gray orb of light suddenly trembled. An old voice, tinged with a hint of surprise, rang out directly in his mind. Child, the energy you just channeled awakened me. I didn't expect that you would also have a demoplane. Old sir, you're awake. Electrolux's voice continued to drift over with a touch of emotion, though this demoplane is still quite desolate and its laws are incomplete, it is indeed a demoplane. Once I have fully recovered, you can try to perform a fusion of my undead half-plane with this space of yours. If successful, it might even give birth to a plane with complete laws. After that, you might even be able to reach the realm of gods, or even surpass them. Huo Yuhao's heart shook violently. Demoplane fusion. Fusing my Kamui dimension with the undead half-plane of the holy necromancer Electrolux. What would that become? A mobile fortress filled with an undead army that could phase through things and teleport at any time. This was simply tailor-made for me. Huo Yuhao suppressed the excitement in his heart and responded in a deep voice. Old sir, that is a very good proposal. I look forward to the day you recover. I still need to sleep for a while longer to recover my divine sense. As the words fell, that gray orb of light lost its luster once more and fell into silence. Huo Yuhao stood up and walked to the crystal coffin. Through the crystal clear lid, Mother's face remained peaceful, as if she were merely asleep. Huo Yuhao's finger gently trailed across the lid, a flash of tenderness appearing in his eyes. Mom, just wait. I will definitely create a world that has you in it. As the master of the Kamui dimension, he could perceive the situation outside through spatial nodes. After confirming that there were no longer any powerful auras at the Sea God Lake shore. Kamui. A red light flashed in Huo Yuhao's right eye, and a spatial Uzumaki appeared once more, swallowing his body. 1 week later. Shrek Academy, cafeteria. After a week of high-intensity training, Huo Yuhao found his spirit power stuck at the level 18 bottleneck. He was pondering where to get some medicinal pills while calmly waiting in line at the cafeteria's most expensive window. In any case, it was the Duchess's money, so he didn't feel the slightest bit of pain spending it. Huo Yuhao held his tray and reached for the last plate of exquisite osmanthus cake in the window. Just as his fingertips were about to touch the plate. Snap. Asterisk. A large hand cut in, trying to seize the plate of pastries first. Kid, let go. An arrogant voice came from above. This plate of osmanthus cake, this young lord saw it first. Huo Yuhao's brow furrowed slightly as his wrist flipped nimbly, avoiding the hand and steadily picking up the osmanthus cake. He turned his head and looked coldly at the tall, thuggish-looking black-haired youth beside him. Shu Sanshi. Shu Sanshi was currently looking quite displeased. He had already scouted ahead and knew that Zhong Nanan loved this kind of osmanthus cake the most. He had come specifically to buy it today to curry favor. Perhaps if the goddess was moved, she would look at him in a new light. He hadn't expected to be cut off by a first-year junior student. Just as he thought this freshman would obediently put it down under his aura. Huo Yuhao's voice, devoid of any emotion, rang out. I have already purchased this plate of osmanthus cake. Go back to wherever you came from. Shu Sanshi was stunned. In the Shrek outer court, someone actually dared to speak to him like that. His face darkened, and a flash of anger appeared in his eyes. Kid, I am the young lord of the Xuanming sect, Shu Sanshi. I'll give you one last chance. Sell it to me at the purchase price, and I'll overlook your offense. Otherwise. He cracked his knuckles, making a series of crisp popping sounds. Face the consequences. A surge of extreme disgust welled up in Huo Yuhao's heart. It was that high and mighty tone again. Right in front of Shu Sanshi, Huo Yuhao put the plate of osmanthus cake into his storage ring. Then, he looked up, his heterochromatic eyes filled with mockery. Oh, face the consequences. Otherwise what? I look forward to your performance. You're looking for death. Shu Sanshi was completely enraged. He was used to acting overbearingly in the outer court. When had he ever been treated like this? He reached out his hand to grab Huo Yuhao's collar. Stop. Several uniformed cafeteria staff members quickly surrounded them, blocking the path between the two. Private fighting is prohibited in the academy. If you want to fight, go to the soul dueling arena. Don't cause trouble here. Shu Sanshi took a deep breath and pointed at Huo Yuhao, a savage smile appearing on his face. Good, very good. Kid, do you dare go to the soul dueling arena? Huo Yuhao straightened his collar and said indifferently. Why wouldn't I dare? I want to see just how you intend to amuse me. Soul dueling arena. Because it was mealtime and the conflict between the two was eye-catching, quite a few curious students had already gathered in the spectator stands. Shu Sanshi stood on one side of the stage, looking at the calm youth opposite him, fury burning in his heart. He pulled an exquisite porcelain bottle from his robes and held it high. Kid, don't say I'm bullying you. Let's make a bet. If you win, this Zan Shui pill is yours. If you lose, Shu Sanshi pointed at his crotch and grinned hideously, you'll crawl through here. And you'll shout, I was wrong, 3 times. Huo Yuhao looked at the porcelain bottle, his pupils contracting slightly. A Zan Shui pill. That was a treasure for water attribute spirit masters. It could not only increase spirit power but also cleanse the marrow and strengthen the tendons. He was just worrying about breaking through the level 18 bottleneck. Wasn't this just like someone bringing a pillow when one was sleepy? A cruel arc curled at the corner of Huo Yuhao's mouth. Fine. But the outcome of your defeat has already been decided. Arrogant. Shu Sanshi snorted coldly. Let the soul duel begin. The teacher acting as the referee ordered. Boom. Asterisk. Spirit power erupted from Shu Sanshi as 2 yellow and 1 purple spirit ring rose up. The Zanming turtle shell shield instantly appeared in his hand. As for Huo Yuhao, he merely slowly activated his Sharingan. A single yellow 100-year spirit ring rose from beneath his feet. He did not rush to attack, but instead took several cold, glinting shuriken from his storage space. Swish swish swish. Asterisk. With a flick of Huo Yuhao's wrist, 4 shuriken traced strange arcs in the air, curving from the left and right sides toward Shu Sanshi's blind spots. Uchiha-style shurikenjutsu. Paltry tricks. Shu Sanshi raised his shield and, with a gentle vibration, a black spirit power wave knocked all of the first batch of shuriken away. But he didn't notice that while Huo Yuhao was throwing the shuriken, his hands were rapidly forming signs. He was defending, no, he was charging up. Under the dynamic vision of the Sharingan, the flow of spirit power within Shu Sanshi's body was clearly visible. Huo Yuhao keenly noticed that the third spirit ring on Shu Sanshi's body was flickering slightly, and a spatial fluctuation was locking onto his position. Trying to use the third spirit ability, Xuanming displacement. Too naive. A cold smile played across Huo Yuhao's lips. The moment Shu Sanshi's purple 1000-year spirit ring fully lit up. Third spirit ability, Xuanming displacement. Shu Sanshi shouted. A black light instantly crossed the distance of dozens of meters, connecting him and Huo Yuhao. Space was instantly displaced. Shu Sanshi only felt his vision blur, and the next second, he had appeared where Huo Yuhao had originally been standing. Kid, feel your own. Shu Sanshi was about to turn and attack when he suddenly felt something was wrong. The surrounding temperature seemed a bit high. He suddenly looked up. He saw that less than half a meter in front of him, a red, hideous flaming ghost head was floating quietly in the air, grinning and laughing at him. Within that ghost head was violent fire attribute chakra, currently at an extremely unstable critical point. When was this left here? Shu Sanchi's pupils instantly shrank to the size of pinpricks. Not far away, Huo Yuhao maintained his hand sign posture, his gaze as cold as ice. He slowly spoke the name of this technique. Fire release, ghost lantern. This was a trap specifically arranged to deal with flicker-type enemies. A second before Shu Sanchi activated the displacement, this red evil ghost head was already there waiting for him. Not good. Shu Sanchi turned pale with fright and tried to raise his shield to defend, but the distance was too close. Explode. Huo Yuhao whispered. Boom. Asterisk. The crimson flaming ghost head exploded violently. The massive explosion echoed throughout the entire soul dueling arena, as rolling heat waves accompanied by black smoke rose into the sky. Ah. Shu Sanchi let out a miserable scream as he was sent flying by the close-range blast wave. Chapter 18. Crushing Shu Sanchi, 2 Zan Shui pills. Ah. With a shrill scream, the massive blast from the explosion sent Shu Sanchi flying backward. He slammed heavily onto the ground outside the arena, kicking up a cloud of dust. The entire venue fell into a deathly silence. Everyone's eyes widened as they looked at the scorched young lord of the Xuanming sect lying outside the ring, and then at the youth on the stage who was completely unscathed, without even a wrinkle in his clothes. An instacle. A 1-ring instacling a 3-ring. The referee teacher nearby froze for several seconds before raising his hand as if waking from a dream. In this soul duel, student Huo Yuhao wins. Wait. A roar interrupted the referee's announcement. Shu Sanchi scrambled up from the ground. His current appearance was wretched in the extreme, his original school uniform had been blown into rags, his face was covered in black and white patches, and wisps of smoke were still rising from his hair. But the fury in his eyes was even more intense than before. I don't accept this. Shu Sanchi brushed the dust off himself and pointed at Huo Yuhao on the stage, roaring through gritted teeth. This kid just got lucky. He sneak attacked while I was being careless. I demand a rematch. As one of the outer court's twin stars, losing to a 1-ring freshman was an absolute humiliation. If he didn't reclaim his dignity today, how could he ever walk around Shrek again? How could he ever pursue Zhang Nanan? The referee teacher frowned slightly and looked at Huo Yuhao. Student Huo Yuhao, are you willing to agree to his proposal? According to the rules, since he has already fallen out of the ring, you are the winner and can refuse. Huo Yuhao crossed his arms, looking down at the disheveled Shu Sanchi from the stage. His Sharingan revealed undisguised contempt. The way you linger on while refusing to admit defeat. Huo Yuhao tilted his head slightly, his tone cold as ice. Is truly ugly. What did you say? Shu Sanchi was completely enraged by these words, the veins on his forehead bulging. He pulled another porcelain bottle from his bosom. I'll add another Zan Shui pill. If you can defeat me again this round, both Zan Shui pills are yours. How about it? Do you dare accept? Huo Yuhao looked at the 2 Zan Shui pills, and the corners of his originally cold mouth slowly curled into a playful, cold sneer. That's more like it. Huo Yuhao resumed his combat stance. Shu Sanchi jumped back onto the stage, and this time, he cast aside all his contempt. Round 2, Soul Duel begin. Following the referee's command. This time, Shu Sanchi did not rashly initiate a displacement, instead, he immediately raised his Zanming turtle shell shield, warily watching Huo Yuhao's every move. Swish, swish, swish. Huo Yuhao didn't waste any words, with a flick of his wrist, several more shuriken flew out of his hand. This move again. Shu Sanchi sneered, just random attacks. You think the same trick will work on me again? He held the giant shield across his front. Clang, clang, clang. The shuriken struck the shield with crisp sounds and were all bounced away. It seems I only lost before because I underestimated you too much. Shu Sanchi hid behind his shield, his tone mocking, your attacks may be strange, but they lack power, they can't break my defense at all. However, just as he thought he had the upper hand, a scorching aura suddenly came from his blind spot behind him. What? Shu Sanchi whipped his head around. He saw those shurikens surprisingly collide and ricochet in midair, bypassing his shield at an unbelievable angle to strike directly at his back. What terrified him even more was that crimson flames had ignited on these shuriken out of thin air. Uchiha style, shuriken jutsu. Fire release, Phoenix Sage Fire Crimson. Damn it. Shu Sanchi was pale with shock, the angle of this attack was too tricky, and simply raising his shield wouldn't block it. Don't underestimate my spirit, you're too naive. Second spirit ability, Zanming Shield Formation. Buzz. The yellow 100-year spirit ring lit up simultaneously. The shield in Shu Sanchi's hand instantly split, transforming into countless black shield shadows that rapidly circled around him, forming a 360-degree dark green energy barrier with no blind spots. Bang, bang, bang. The burning shuriken struck the shield array, exploding into bursts of sparks, yet they remained unable to break through that heavy defense. Seeing the flames being blocked outside, Shu Sanchi breathed a sigh of relief and then laughed wildly. Ha 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 ha, it's useless. My Zanming Turtle Shell Shield is a top-tier defensive spirit. When I want to defend, no one can break it. Huo Yuhao stopped his movements and looked at the barrier that resembled a turtle shell. A turtle hiding in its shell. Do you think that by hiding in your shell, I have no way to deal with you? Huo Yuhao formed hand seals again. This time, his hand seal speed was faster than ever before. The chakra inside his body surged wildly. Water release, water colliding wave. Whoosh. Under the shocked gazes of the entire audience. A massive water tornado actually rose out of thin air on the Soul Duel stage. Huo Yuhao was surrounded by surging currents. Go. He pointed with one hand. The water tornado instantly transformed into a towering wave, carrying the force of 10,000 tons as it slammed into Shu Sanchi's Zanming Shield Formation. Heavens. A wave of exclamations erupted from the audience. That one-ring Soul Master can actually create such a large-scale water attribute spirit ability out of thin air in an arena without water. How is this possible? Can he even afford that spirit power consumption? Not only the students, but even the referee teacher was dumbfounded. A spirit ability of this scale would surely require at least a 3-ring spirit elder to release, right? Faced with the roaring wave, Shu Sanchi was not alarmed but delighted. Idiot. He shouted from within the shield array, my black tortoise originally has dual attributes of water and earth. Water attribute attacks will be greatly weakened against me. This move is useless against me. The giant wave instantly submerged Shu Sanshi, completely enveloping him and his shield array in water. Just as he said, the Zanming shield formation didn't shatter in the water, instead, it became even more solid due to the nourishment of the same attribute. However, Huo Yuhao stood atop the waves, looking at the turtle shell beneath the water, the cold sneer on his lips growing increasingly cruel. Oh, useless. Then what if I add this? CZT, CZT, CZT. Huo Yuhao did not stop. The moment the water colliding wave was released, his hands had already finished forming new seals. This time, it was lightning. The chakra in his body was compressed to the limit, condensing into a dazzling blue-white electric light in his palm. Lightning release, false darkness. Boom. Huo Yuhao thrust both hands forward. A beam of lightning as sharp as a spear instantly plunged into the water below. Water is conductive. When the violent lightning release chakra made contact with the currents enveloping Shu Sanshi, the effect underwent a qualitative change instantly. The originally gentle currents now became the most lethal conductor. In that instant, the entire soul duel stage was illuminated by blue electric light. What? In the water, Shu Sanshi's pupils constricted. He saw the lightning spreading rapidly through the water. You actually control the lightning attribute too. A third attribute. How is this possible? He had thought this kid's spirit was special, allowing him to master at most fire and water attribute attacks. But now, this lethal thunder shattered all his fantasies. Crack. The lightning instantly pierced through the Zanming shield formation. Shu Sanshi's defense was as fragile as thin paper before Huo Yuhao's dual attribute attack. Ah. A scream even more shrill than before echoed throughout the venue. The Zanming shield formation instantly shattered. Shu Sanshi's entire body spasmed violently in the water, his hair standing on end, foaming at the mouth with black smoke rising from his skin. In just 2 seconds, the waves dissipated. Shu Sanshi lay slumped like a pile of mud on the soaking wet stage, his body scorched and still twitching uncontrollably. His eyes rolled back, and he let out unconscious groans, having completely lost his combat capability. No, impossible. You are only a one ring. Until the moment he lost consciousness, he could not accept this reality. The referee teacher swallowed hard, looking at the cold-looking youth standing in the middle of the standing water. Too strong. This attribute combination was simply art. The match is decided. Huo Yuhao is the winner. Cheers erupted belatedly. Huo Yuhao ignored the surrounding clamor. He walked over to Shu Sanshi and took the porcelain bottle containing the 2 Zan Shui pills. Your failure is my reality. With that, Huo Yuhao turned and left, leaving behind only an arrogant silhouette. Chapter 19. Tiger Skin Mask, Capturing Tang Ya. With Shu Sanshi's pathetic defeat, Huo Yuhao's name spread throughout the Shrek Outer Academy. The strongest one-ring soul master. This somewhat ridiculous-sounding title became a fact recognized by everyone. Some busybodies even solemnly declared that the true monster of the Shrek Outer Academy was actually a first-year student with only 1 ring. This sense of déjà vu was just like, the strongest in Konoha are the genin. However, Huo Yuhao, at the center of the storm of public opinion, didn't care at all. Just a hollow name. Before true power, this praise was worthless. After returning to the dormitory, he immediately took the first Zan Shui pill he had won from Shu Sanshi. The medicinal power turned into a surging heat, washing through his limbs and bones. After one night, Huo Yuhao opened his eyes and exhaled a breath of turbid air. Level 19. Just one step away from becoming a 2-ring Great Soul Master. He was in no hurry to take the second pill. An unstable foundation is a major taboo. He planned to continue high-intensity weight training, water walking, and tree climbing. Until this level of spirit power was thoroughly solidified, then he would push through the bottleneck. That night, in the dormitory. Under the soft light of the soul tool lamp, Huo Yuhao was thinking and deducing ninjutsu. On the opposite bed, Wang Dong flipped through a book about martial soul fusion skills, hesitated for a long time, and finally couldn't help but speak. Hey, Huo Yuhao. The freshman assessment starts in 2 months. Wang Dong sat up straight. We are a team, after all. Although you're strong, teamwork is also important. Shall we plan some team training tomorrow? Huo Yuhao didn't look back, only saying coldly. No need. For a competition of this level, I alone am enough. After saying that, he grabbed his coat and pushed the door open. Bang. The door closed, leaving a dazed Wang Dong sitting on the bed. A few seconds later, a roar erupted in the dormitory. Huo Yuhao, you are too arrogant. Wang Dong was so angry that he grabbed a pillow and threw it hard at the door. You'll learn your lesson when you're defeated by a strong enemy. Even if you come back and beg me then, I won't team up with you. Bastard. Huo Yuhao didn't go to the training ground. His figure moved like a ghost through the shadows of the campus, finally reaching the depths of a deserted forest on the back mountain. After confirming no one was around, he took several items out of his storage ring. A wide black robe, a heavy black chain, and an orange-yellow tiger skin mask that only exposed the right eye. Huo Yuhao put on the black robe, donned the mask, and wrapped the chain around his wrist. At this moment, he exuded a cold, mysterious, and dangerous aura. Just like that mysterious masked man who invaded Konoha alone and controlled the Nine-Tailed on the night of the Nine-Tails attack. Next, it was time to pull in the net. Tang Ya, Sea God Lake Shore. Aside from Tang Ya's lonely figure, the surroundings were empty. Tang Ya hugged her knees, burying her face in her arms. Just half an hour ago, she finally couldn't help but confront Bebe with the question that had been weighing on her heart. Bebe, when the Tang sect was wiped out by the Iron Blood sect, why did Shrek Academy do nothing? She waited hopefully for a reasonable explanation. But what she saw was Bebe's evasive eyes and a troubled expression. Xiao Ya, the academy has its own difficulties. The situation was complicated back then. Helping in emergencies but not in poverty is the rule. All pretexts, all circular talk. Not a single direct answer. At that moment, Tang Ya felt like her world had collapsed. The academy she had always been proud of, the lover she had always trusted, appeared so indifferent and hypocritical in the face of the Tang sect's blood feud. Tang Ya finally shook off Bai Bei's hand and ran here, soul shattered. Liars, all of them are liars. What, #1 academy on the continent? What, incarnation of justice? When my whole family was killed, you were all just cold bystanders. While she was immersed in sadness and anger. Little girl. A deep, raspy voice suddenly sounded above her head. You seem very lost. Tang Ya trembled and instantly jumped up alertly, her spirit possessing her. Who's there? She looked up toward the source of the voice. On a nearby treetop stood a mysterious figure in a black robe. Under the moonlight, the tiger skin mask on his face only revealed a right eye. Within that eye, the crimson pupil had 3 scimitar-like patterns slowly rotating. Tang Ya was startled. Huo Yuhao had used transformation jutsu to slightly adjust his physique and used voice mimicry techniques to change his voice. Combined with the Sharingan that specifically imitated Uchiha Itachi's Mangekyo pattern, he was a completely different person from the usual Huo Yuhao. Just as Minato Namikaze, as a teacher, hadn't recognized Obito back then. Tang Ya, as a teacher, was even less likely to recognize that the mysterious man exuding a terrifying aura before her was the well-behaved, little Yuhao. Who I am is not important. The black-robed man looked down at her, his tone carrying a hint of bewitchment. What's important is, the doubt in your heart. Do you want to know why Shrek didn't act? Do you want to know the truth about the Tang sect's downfall? I can't answer you, everything regarding Shrek and the Tang sect. Tang Ya's pupils contracted sharply as she looked at him in shock. How do you know what I'm thinking? She then gritted her teeth and shouted, whoever you are, this has nothing to do with you. Leave this place. Nothing to do with me. The black-robed man chuckled, his laughter filled with mockery. The sorrow of the weak is that they don't even dare to face the truth. Having said that, he pulled hard with both hands. Clang. The chain hidden under the black robe instantly tightened, draped behind him. The next second, he kicked off, his whole body like a black falcon, swooping down toward Tang Ya. Since you refuse to listen, then come with me. In your dreams. Tang Ya was also a 3-ring soul elder with very fast reactions. A yellow spirit ring lit up. First spirit ability, blue-silver binding. She flipped her palm, and several thick strands of blue-silver grass turned into whips, lashing fiercely at the black-robed man in midair. Facing this sharp strike, the black-robed man didn't even dodge. Is he seeking death? Just as this thought flashed through Tang Ya's mind. In the next moment, a scene that terrified her occurred. Swish. The blue-silver grass vines passed through the black-robed man's body without any resistance, as if passing through an illusion. What kind of move is this? A spatial spirit ability. Kamui. Huo Yuhao muttered in his heart. This was one of his current greatest trump cards, intangibility. In this state, any physical attack would be unable to touch him. In his current state, he could only use it for 10 seconds a day, but against an opponent of Tang Ya's level, it was already more than enough. What? Tang Ya cried out in surprise. In the moment she was stunned, the black-robed man had already passed through her blue-silver grass defense, and even, passed through her body. The two crossed paths. But in that very instant, clatter. The chain in the black-robed man's hand did not phase. That heavy black chain tightened instantly like a python, firmly binding Tang Ya, pinning her arms to her sides. Got you. Huo Yuhao, with his back to Tang Ya, yanked the chain hard, pulling her stumbling backward. You have nowhere to run. Tang Ya struggled desperately, but the chain seemed specially made, the more she struggled, the tighter it became. Fear finally crept into her heart. This is Shrek Academy. Let me go. Tang Ya screamed sharply, how dare you attack me in Shrek Academy? There are powerful experts everywhere, you won't end well. Huo Yuhao turned around, a trace of disdain flashing in his lone eye. Not end well. They couldn't even keep an eye on a rampaging Ma Xiaotao, what can these so-called experts keep an eye on? Sleep. Huo Yuhao stared into Tang Ya's terrified eyes. A red light flashed in his Sharingan. Genjutsu activated. Tang Ya felt a wave of intense dizziness hit her eyelids instantly became incredibly heavy, and she collapsed limply. Huo Yuhao supported the unconscious Tang Ya with one hand. Kamui. A spatial vortex appeared again, swallowing both him and Tang Ya's body. The sea god lakeshore returned to dead silence. As if no one had ever been there. Chapter 20 The Masked Man, I am Tang Chen. Kamui Dimension. Here, there was eternal silence. Massive deep blue rectangular pillars stood scattered in an orderly fashion within the void realm, stretching into the darkness at the end of sight. In this world of dead silence, there were only 2 living people. One of them was clad in a black robe, wearing a tiger skin mask, sitting cross-legged atop the highest stone pillar. The other was bound by thick black chains to a stone platform below. Genjutsu, release. Huo Yuhao slowly opened his right eye. The scarlet Mangekyo Sharingan spun slightly. The bound Tang Ya's body jolted violently, and her previously tightly closed eyes snapped open. Confusion, dizziness, fear. Countless negative emotions instantly flooded her heart. Tang Ya subconsciously tried to struggle, wanting to mobilize the spirit power in her body. But those black chains seemed to possess a sealing power, no matter how she tried to activate it, her spirit power remained as stagnant as dead water, without a single ripple. Where is this? She looked around in terror. The unfamiliar environment was completely different from any scenery on the Douluo Continent. She remembered now, she had been at the Sea God Lakeshore when she was captured by a black-robed man wearing a mask. You're awake. That low, raspy voice came from above. Tang Ya snapped her head up, staring fixedly at the masked man, shouting with forced bravado. Where is this? Let me go. I am a student of Shrek Academy. If they find out I'm missing, the Academy will definitely investigate to the end. No matter where you run, Shrek will never let you off. Facing Tang Ya's threat, Huo Yuhao only gave a faint, light chuckle. That laughter echoed in the empty space, carrying endless mockery. Shrek. Huo Yuhao slowly stood up, looking down at her from above. Little girl, save your energy. This is already a world outside the Douluo Continent. It is a domain that belongs solely to me. He spread his arms, as if embracing this void realm. In this space, I control everything. Forget about Shrek Academy, even the dragon god Douluo, Elder Mew, couldn't possibly find you. Elder Mew. Tang Ya's heart skipped a violent beat. An ordinary person might not know who Elder Mew was. But as the Tang sect leader and Bai Bei's lover, she knew all too well what that name represented. That was the current ceiling of the continent's combat power, a rank 99 limit Douluo. This masked man before her didn't even take Elder Mew seriously, and he claimed this was outside the continent. An unprecedented sense of despair enveloped Tang Ya. Not on the Douluo continent, how is that possible? Even a titled Douluo, or even a limit Douluo, couldn't possibly possess such world-altering means, right? Tang Ya took a deep breath, forcing herself to calm down. Who exactly are you? Why did you go to such lengths to capture me and bring me here? Huo Yuhao slowly floated down from above, his black robe fluttering without wind, finally stopping 3 meters in front of Tang Ya. Through the mask, that single scarlet eye held a suffocating depth. This seat is named Uchiha Madara. Tang Ya froze. She rapidly searched through the rosters of major sects and historical powerhouses in her mind, but she had never heard of this name. Never heard of it. Huo Yuhao seemed to see through her thoughts, his voice taking on a hint of age and playfulness. That's right, that's a name from a long time ago. He took a step forward, the aura on his body suddenly shifting. Since you are a descendant of the Tang sect, then my other identity is one you should be even more familiar with. Huo Yuhao paused, then spat out that name word by word. Tang Chen. Boom. Those 2 words were like a clap of thunder. Her eyes widened, her pupils constricted violently, and her breathing almost stopped. Tang Chen. The great-great-grandfather of ancestor Tang San from 10,000 years ago. One of the 3 great limit Douluos of that era. The former Clear Sky sect master. The Asura god successor, Tang Chen. How is this possible? After the initial shock, Tang Ya's first reaction was that it was absurd. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. She argued loudly, trying to use logic to pierce through this lie. The family records stated very clearly. Although ancestor Tang Chen's sanity was restored by ancestral master Tang San, his body had long been overdrawn by the 9-headed bloody crimson bat king, and his physical body collapsed and he died shortly after. Who are you really? Stop playing tricks here. Facing Tang Ya's doubt, Huo Yuhao did not explain. He just looked at her quietly, and the Mangekyo Sharingan in his right eye suddenly began to spin frantically. The wisdom of mortals is always blinded by so-called records. Since you don't believe it, then let me make you recall. The fear that belongs to Asura. Buzz. The entire world changed. The moment Tang Ya's voice fell, the surrounding blue stone pillars and the pitch-black void realm shattered instantly. In their place was a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. The sky turned dark red, and beneath her feet were countless white bones. The air was thick with the smell of blood, as if countless aggrieved souls were wailing in her ears. This is. Before she could react. In the sky, a blood-colored rift tore open. A massive, entirely blood-red demon sword, carrying an aura of slaughter that could destroy heaven and earth, slowly poked out its tip. That was the Asura demon sword. Accept your judgment. Huo Yuhao's voice came from the horizon like divine punishment. Boom. The demon sword fell. That aura of slaughter, which surpassed her dimensional understanding, instantly locked onto her. This was not a power of the mortal realm at all, this was a god's judgment. No. Tang Ya let out a scream of despair. But before the giant sword, which was enough to split heaven and earth, her voice seemed so insignificant. Gucci. The giant sword fell, splitting her entire body in 2. Agony. The excruciating pain of a soul being torn apart. Her vision went black, and her consciousness dissipated. However, the next second, Tang Ya snapped her eyes open. She found in terror that she was standing in the same spot, completely unharmed. Resurrected. Before she could feel relieved, a massive blood-colored energy slash swept toward her. Puff. Death again. Once, and again, and again. In the genjutsu, time seemed to lose its meaning. Tang Ya no longer knew how many times she had died. 100 times. 1,000 times. The pain of every death was real, and the fear of every rebirth was doubled. That shuddering from the depths of her soul completely shattered her psychological defenses. Finally. Just as her consciousness was about to completely collapse and fall into the brink of madness. Wake up. A low shout, like a life-saving rope, pulled her back from hell into reality. Huff, huff, huff. Tang Ya panted heavily, gasping for air. Her face was as pale as paper, and her pupils were unfocused. So, I'm not dead. She tremblingly raised her head. What entered her sight was still that black-robed man wearing the tiger skin mask. But this time, her gaze had changed. It was no longer doubt, no longer anger, but deep fear and awe. At this moment, an aura that made her soul tremble was radiating from Huo Yuhao's body. That was the divine pressure, simulated by Huo Yuhao through fully activating the Ghetto statue and combining it with genjutsu. That aura was ancient, domineering, and filled with slaughter, as if the entire world would collapse with just a thought from him. Tang Ya had never seen such pure, such supreme killing intent in her life. Even Elder Mew, the strongest person she knew, seemed as insignificant as a firefly before this aura. If it wasn't the Asura god successor from back then, if it wasn't the man who once reigned as king in the Slaughter City, how could he possess such an aura? Huo Yuhao stood with his hands behind his back, red light flowing in that single eye, his voice indifferent. Little girl. Now, do you believe? Tang Ya nodded tremblingly, tears flowing uncontrollably. A space outside the Douluo continent. Means that transcended life and death. Pressure that stood above a limit Douluo. All of this had completely exceeded her scope of knowledge. Aside from that legendary man, she couldn't think of a second possibility. Junior, Tang Ya, pays respects to old ancestor Tang Chen. Looking at the girl who finally lowered her head, a smirk of success curled at the corner of Huo Yuhao's mouth under the mask. It worked. The aura enhancement of the Ghetto statue, combined with the psychological suggestion of the Sharingan Genjutsu. Fooling a little girl with only 3 rings was as easy as turning over a hand. Chapter 21, Tang Ya's collapse. The Tang sect will be renamed.